All right, we are live. What's going on, everybody? It's been a little while since we've been on the show here. How's everybody doing tonight? Welcome to another episode of Sasquatch Out of the Shadows Live. Hope everyone's doing well on this Monday night here. As I'm trying to get back into the hang of things here. Obviously, it's been a while since we've done a live stream, since I've been on live stream. The live streams have been going on, and shout out to Carrick St. Laurent of Crash Course Cryptozoology. Obviously a great friend of the program, awesome co-host. He's like the go-to guy. He did 3 presentations in a row for the past few weeks when we were out and we weren't able to do streams. So pretty awesome. Shout out to Carrick. I see he's in the comments. So if you guys haven't, go check out his channel, Crash Course Cryptozoology. Seriously, he's got some awesome projects coming up. I'm aware of a lot of them. They're super great. A lot of them have to do with the New England, New Hampshire area, including the Danville Devil Monkey. That's one that he's working on, as well as the Marlboro Monkey, which is a kind of a Bigfoot case. So really awesome. Carrick says, my pleasure, Alex. Yeah, awesome. Well, hope everyone's doing well. So this is going to be an interesting show. We're going to do a recap of our kind of whirlwind trip to the Pacific Northwest here the past few weeks. We were up there in Northern California and Oregon as well. We'll be bringing a bunch of folks onto the show. We're still waiting for a couple of guys to pop in, but we'll start bringing people in. So yeah, basically what we were doing was we were filming latest Beyond the Trail of episodes, hanging out with some awesome folks as well there in along the way, as well as I'm sure we'll talk about. We'll try to kind of break down everything. And for folks that aren't aware, Beyond the Trail, the second episode came out in early July. It's about Sasquatch in the Pine Tree State, about Bigfoot in Maine. You can go check that out over in the Small Town Monsters channel, as well as the first episode, the Grant State Bigfoot case, about Bigfoot in New Hampshire. So what we were filming will be, I guess, the third episode of the follow-up to the main episode, which will be Bigfoot Country, California. That's going to be the name of the episode. And the Oregon one, we're still working on a title, so we'll have to figure that out. But without further ado, let me just say hi to everyone in the chat. We have Bigfoot Society, Jeremiah. What's going on? A bunch of real cool dudes. You're a cool dude, Jeremiah. Jeremiah is awesome. We had a chance to take one of his Bluff Creek stickers and put it on the Bluff Creek National Forest sign, which was pretty cool. I don't know if that counts as vandalism, but it's a small sticker, right? So that was really cool. Kim says this should be good. How's it going, Kim? We got Mothman 46 one time at Bigfoot Camp. What's going on? Hello, Bill Mers. Tammy says hello from Nebraska. Obviously, we have Carrick in the chat. Lots of awesome folks as well. Kevin Hamilton, what's going on in Canada, my friend? Gerald says hello. Johnny Half says what's happening. So, Cans Squatch as well. So let's bring a couple of folks in so far that we have. We've got good old Tate Hieronymus, the esteemed nephew of Bob Hieronymus.
Not even close.
So Tate was with us pretty much the whole trip. Greg Morrell's actually in the chat as well. He says, hey, what's going on, Greg? Another Canadian. What's going on up there, man? We've got Ron Reed, who's looking awesome with some glasses. What's going on, dude?
Ron.
Hey, what's up?
Why does Ron remind me of Max Goof from a Goofy movie when he's trying to impress Roxanne?
I have no idea, Tate. That just comes to you. And then we've got Jonathan Easley, a.k.a. Jonathan Sasquatch, or actually Western Bigfoot Society, or Exploration, right? Western Bigfoot Society. I'm like,
No. Western Bigfoot Exploration.
I'm so mixed up because there's Bigfoot Society with Jeremiah, then there's Ron with Sasquatch Society, and for some reason I always think Western Bigfoot Society. I don't know why.
Everyone's got the same name. Yeah, these guys got cool shades, a cool stash, a beer, and I managed to reach over and grab bubbles.
Oh, there you go.
Nice.
Well, you got the little tiki background there with the beach.
Yeah, there we go. Where is it? There we go. Yeah,
oh,
I got my little Hawaii setup out here on the balcony in Long Beach, California. So if you hear, we are in Long Beach, so if you hear women yelling at their children and whatnot, sirens, and forgive me.
Boy.
I'm looking over at my computer because I got the live stream on my computer on YouTube, so I'm looking at the chat that way.
Oh, there you go. There's also, we do have, if you guys want on the StreamYard, there's a chat. It might be set to the private chat, but you can go to comments at the top and it'll show you all the comments coming in. But I'll pull up relevant ones. We've got more people in the chat. Long Island fan says hi all. Random Yeti 5. Sup, boys? Sup, Random Yeti? Roger Blair, howdy from Eastern Kentucky. What's going on? Lots of great people. So yeah, basically, man, I don't even know. I forget how to do this. We've been out in the field so long. I'm still trying to get readjusted to society here. But so what we're going to do is I think we might have Eli popping in a little bit. I don't know if Sam might be coming in as well. We're going to start talking about kind of the projects. But let's go around. Tate's been on the show, but you guys haven't. So let's just all kind of say a little quick something about ourselves. So Tate, if you want to start out, who are you and kind of what do you do with Bigfoot? Aside from being Bob Hieronymus' nephew.
I mean, well, that's a little vague. There's not enough evidence to support that. But I co-host the Bluff Creek Project podcast. I'm a member of the BFRO and I'm a member of the Bluff Creek Project in Northern California. And I try and do filmmaking if I can. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
I think you missed comedian extraordinaire.
Oh, that's in person.
Tate is funny online, but man, in person, he's like 3 times funnier. It's actually
Bigfooting has its Zach Galifianakis for sure.
No, seriously,
humor, man, dude. That guy.
We've been talking about if there was a one of those Between Two Ferns show, it'd be like Tate Hieronymus Between Two Ferns, and he would just have all these Bigfoot people on. It's him asking Jeff Meldrum and other people awkward questions. Be great. We should probably make that happen.
Oh my god.
Yep.
So next in line we have Jonathan. If you want to say a little bit about maybe your channel and kind of what's up with you, man.
Yeah, so I've been doing this since about 2014, 2015-ish. And I got out in the field, did a lot of stuff in the Sierras, met a lot of cool people out there, had some really weird stuff happen. And I kept coming back to society with these stories about what happened out there. And it was really hard to convey. And you show them pictures, it's not enough. And then it hit me. And I go, you know what? I'm going to start making like videos, like really nice videos. And I'm still on that mission and I'm trying to get better and better at it. This at the end of August, probably early September, I should have 1, maybe 2 videos out, and they're pretty high quality and something I'm looking forward to making. Something hopefully I'll be proud of. But a lot of it has our adventure up there in Humboldt. So
heck yeah, I have my Humboldt shirt on, Humboldt County. So
nice.
Yeah, no, Jonathan's videos are awesome. I actually before the trip in, there's not a lot of videos about Bluff Creek, Louse Camp, that whole area. There's maybe only a few on YouTube, and Jonathan's were some of the ones that really inspired me. Watching his videos about it, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to be in that spot. So definitely high quality stuff. Western Bigfoot Exploration. That's the YouTube channel. If I don't have it linked below, I will throw that link in at the end of the video, guys, to all of their respective podcasts or programs or whatever. So I'll put that in there. And then we got Mr. Ron Reed. And Bandit is somewhere there too.
So let's see. What can I say about me?
Aside from being an awesome backpacker, this guy is truly badass. Like he's hiked and backpacked all over the place. But what got you into the Bigfoot stuff?
I think I was into Bigfoot before I was into all the backpacking stuff. Honestly, I mean, I guess it came around. Like I started early, like before I was even in high school, junior high. I just kind of got into Bigfoot. I was always into natural history. Always like those old school, like late 90s, like nature programs with Steve Irwin and Jeff Corwin. And I think there was an element of adventure and mystery. So cryptozoology stood out. And I just kind of took that ball and ran with it throughout middle school, high school. And then 2010, I think all of us are kind of aware at this point of my first expedition, which was like a solo trip when I was 17 years old to Northern California, around where we were. And I didn't know what I was doing. And over the years, I guess I did pick up some backpacking skills, some outdoor recreation skills, and learned more about natural history. So, I've been doing this since 2010 now, going out and doing field investigations, and have recently kind of expanded out towards other cryptids instead of just Bigfoot. But I mean, I just got a Facebook page, Sasquatch Society, and a little bit of content developing on YouTube, but that's about it.
Right on. Yeah, no, Ron's a good guy to have out in the field for sure. He was with us in both Northern California and in Oregon, which was awesome. And we'll talk a little bit about kind of all of that and some of the really cool stuff. Without giving too much away, we'll talk a little bit about some of the crazy things that we may or may not have had happen to us out there. But in the comments, Jeremiah says, Bigfoot Sight says, I would watch that show every day in regards to the Tate Between Two Ferns. And Shrooms Sado says, Tate to Jeff Meldrum. What do you do when you take a mid-tarsal break at work? Jeff Meldrum is just making a face. I could see that. That would be great.
That's so good.
This would seriously be a great idea. Salvatore says Carrick did an awesome job substituting your vacancy, Alex. He was fired. Yeah, totally. Carrick's awesome. Like I said, I can't heap enough praise onto him. Not only is he a good friend, he's just a good dude all around and does a solid job. So, yeah. So how do we start this out? Basically, I don't even know how it all kind of came to be, but we were all going to Bluff Creek around the same time.
I think I've been nagging you guys.
Yeah, you'd been trying to get us out there for a while, and I think Eli was trying to go out there, and he was telling me about it, and he was like, you should come, and I'm like, yeah, let's just do it, whatever. And then we turned it into a Beyond the Trail, which we've been doing. You know, we obviously did our main episode about a month before we headed out to Bluff Creek, so the timeline there was super tight. But it just so happens that every year the Bluff Creek Project kind of has a, would you call it it's not really a formal get-together, it's kind of just like a camp out.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an annual thing because it happens every year.
Right.
So I've been nagging you guys for like about over a year. It seems like maybe to like, hey, you guys should come out with me because I usually try and go out there once a year, and then like you said, it just worked out. Timing was tight, but it worked out.
Yeah, no, it definitely worked out. I think the whole sequence of events. So we were kind of like, yeah, let's go to Northern California. We'll go to Bluff Creek. We'll go to the Patterson-Gimlin film site. It's obviously the big draw in that area. And then we were also saying, well, let's just go to Oregon while we're at it. Might as well, right? Obviously Cliff Barrickman and the awesome museum he's got up there, the North American Bigfoot Center, Connor Anderson, Keith, just the awesome people, Melissa Barrickman as well, really great people up there. So it was Eli and I started the journey down in LA. We ended up in Portland. So we did like 3/4 of the West Coast basically in that time span. Tate and Ron did as well. Jonathan was there for the Bluff Creek portion.
You guys, you and Eli met me in Santa Barbara.
That's right. So I landed in LA super late, and we just basically drove out to Santa Barbara, camped in some random spot in the National Forest, and then headed to San Francisco the next day with aims to go to the Bigfoot Discovery Museum near San Francisco, which wasn't open, I guess. So that wasn't that wasn't great. But before we kind of get into it, I just want to hear from all of you guys. Have been to Bluff Creek previous to this trip, right? So Tate, obviously you've been there probably the most out of any of us. You go there pretty annually. Then I'd say Jonathan, Ron, you've been there a few times as well. But Tate, what is it about the Bluff Creek and that area that keeps drawing you back in every year?
I think it's the I don't know. It's just really special to be out there, and I'm sure you can say that now that you've been there before. It's filled with just so much history, with Bigfoot related history. You got like the first tracks ever casted there by Jerry Crew, and you got the film, and it's just the whole Tom Slick Pacific Northwest expedition was held there in Louse Camp. So it's a very rich. It's really rich in diversity as far as Bigfoot goes, and there's still a lot of animal activity out there. So it's definitely a place that, because of that reason, I like going. It's like going to camp in a museum that's interactive, if that makes sense.
It's a good quote.
Yep.
It's a great way to put it. What about you, Ron? What do you think, having been there previously? Was this your second time there, or have you been there since as well?
It's my second time there, third time out, like in that greater Northern Cali area.
Sure.
Like I made it to Hoopa and Willow Creek and the Trinity Alps Wilderness the first time. The second time I swung in Bigfoot books because I had a set of wheels, and Stephen Strufert pointed me in the right direction, and I just timed that perfectly with like the camp out and got to meet everybody, and the ball started rolling a little bit after that.
Yeah. Awesome. And I mean, is there anything like that really sticks out to you about that area in particular?
Surprisingly, like there was a lot of, like Tate said, there's a lot of history there, and so I knew the first time I was there the significance of that region, but it didn't really dawn upon me. That trip was really quiet for whatever reason. We tried a lot. We got out to a lot of locations, but didn't really experience any weird things. It wasn't until this trip where a few strange things started unfolding that I was like, oh, this is why it's the spot,
Mm-hmm.
Totally. Jonathan, man, I know you got some good stuff to say.
So this is my third time there. And the way Bluff Creek works is that when you first get into Bigfooting and you first start reading about Bigfoot in general, it obviously takes you to the place that Bigfoot was invented. The word Bigfoot was invented, which was by Jerry Crew in 1958. And we got to stand at the exact spot where those tracks were cast and where they found the heavy machinery and fuel barrels thrown into the creek. We got to see those spots. Like Tate said, it's like when you camp there, it's like camping at a museum. Only stuff's supposed to still happen, right? But you don't read or hear too much about like modern stuff. You hear about this old stuff, right? Which is really cool, and you can learn a ton off of. And everyone who had like a book back in the 1960s and 70s and 80s, based a lot of their research out of Bluff Creek. So you go there and you can go to Louse Camp where Tom Slick was, and go and find the Blue Creek Trackway where Renee DeHinden and John Green were, and you see all this stuff. It's like camping in a museum, literally. And I've been there 2 other times. The first time, nothing really happened. Maybe some potential sounds. There was that weird one that I got on camera that I didn't realize that I got, I guess. Then the next time I went back, absolutely nothing happened. In fact, we didn't even see any wildlife other than hearing a fox. We didn't see any deer. We didn't see any bear. And it wasn't until this trip that, man, I got deer on my night vision. I got deer on my phone. I got deer on, I saw deer. I got a bear on camera. I haven't even shown you guys
that
yet.
Ran, yeah.
Yeah. We saw a ton of wireless salamanders. And I mean, we saw almost every animal you can see and heard, possibly more. So yeah, it was my second time camping at the Patterson-Gimlin film site, which is always, I don't know, it's always exciting.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I think for me, it was just it was like filling in that piece of the Bigfoot map in my head. You go to all these other places around the country, around the world that are known for Bigfoot hotspots. We were in the Olympic Peninsula back in April, been to the Whitehall area, Fouke. Some of these areas, you kind of get a feel for it. I'd been once previously just driving through Willow Creek, had never made it to the film site. We just kind of drove through, saw the sites, and then I thought, well, what about the film site? I think what really struck me the most was how remote it actually still is. I mean, there's a lot more going on today than there would have been 100 years ago, but those roads are pretty much in the middle of nowhere up until, or not even roads until the late 1950s, and when that whole Bigfoot kind of story, the modern mythos emerged, when those roads were punched in with the logging crews. And it struck me, Louse Camp, I thought, Louse Camp is this camp that's kind of right up the road, right? You get off the main road, you go in there, and then from there you go deeper into Bluff Creek and the whole region. I didn't know Louse Camp was the last stop on the road, 9 miles in, more than that even, from the actual road. And you're already in a rural area once you get off the main road onto the Go Road and then onto all these other roads in the middle of nowhere, basically. And just seeing how you could fall off a cliff with your car and get stuck. And that's happened to certain individuals in the history of Bluff Creek, the sordid history. But yeah, that's what struck me the most. I mean, just filling in that piece of the puzzle in my head, seeing what this area actually looked like and going down to the PGF site. And the creepy factor around Louse Camp is so real, especially when compared to even the PGF film site.
That's a question I asked you guys at the film site. I was like, what do you think is creepier, camping at the film site or camping at Louse Camp? I mean, yeah.
Louse Camp for sure. At least for me.
I agree, because it's like there's something about the trees being so big and it's just so open in Louse Camp. When it gets dark there, there's something really creepy about it.
I mean, there
Well,
is.
also, Laos Camp gives you that kind of like you're at a state of vulnerability because
Totally.
everything's a little bit higher than you. The road's a little bit higher. It's kind of in a bowl, and if something wants to watch you, it's really easy to do. You can't watch it, but it can watch you, and it does have a history of sightings. You know, like
Right.
you guys talked to Bobo. Bobo had a sighting there not just a couple years ago. Other people have had that too. And the Patterson-Gimlin film site is just completely full of trees, and you can't see very
Yeah.
far in any direction.
I can't remember if it was Alex that said, like, if somebody really wanted to watch you at the film site, it would almost have to be in view
Yeah.
of you to see it. So you basically see it too.
Yeah, that's what I kind of had the feeling, because that area where the film site is, it's pretty flat, and it surprised me. You know, you have these trees that have grown in since 1967, obviously. That, you know, just walking through there, when I was walking through, I was making so much noise. And when Ron was going to his camp, which was off to the side of where we were, so we were basically camped right where frame 352 happened, or in that vicinity where Patty would have walked. It's still flat and hasn't really grown in there, but it just didn't feel creepy. There's the hill in the background, but it's a ways away. And Ron and I found mountain lion scat. We got to see Rowdy Kelly of the Bluff Creek Project taking out the cards, and they have a bunch of trail cameras in that area. So we saw all the animals they had captured pretty much since last October on there. So many bear and mountain lion all going through that area, and none of that really creeps me out. There's something about Louse Camp, knowing that there's a history of sightings and the fact that the creek is right there, and you can't hear much, right? And that creek talks, and you hear voices from the creek, and it's a little disconcerting at times.
It is so funny because, like, even though you're in Louse Camp and it is creepy and you can get out really easy with a car, there is something less creepy about staying at the film site when you have to hike in somewhere and you can't get out by car at your convenience.
Oh, totally. I think there was one question. Bill Mers asks, how long does it take to hike back to the PG film site?
So I answered his question on YouTube, but
oh, did you?
Yeah, it's like, I would say a little under 45 minutes, about that time.
Yeah, it's really not bad. I mean, once you get down that rough road and you're at the berm, you have to kind of hike from there. It's, if you're a hiker or backpacker, it's really a breeze. But you know, it's not. On the way up, I think it was harder coming up because it was like 90 something degrees,
and we were
and we had like 50 pounds on our back. So
I think a mile and a half is what you guys have. The Bluff Creek Project has charted out. Mile and a half to the film site, right?
Yeah,
sounds about right.
Like that.
Feels about right.
2 miles or a mile and a half to 2 miles, give or take. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right. Mile and a half.
Like Eli has finally decided to join us.
I was spending time with
there
my
he
brother.
Is.
Team Eli.
It's okay, Eli. We forgive you. We're talking about the PGF site right now.
What about it?
Okay, let me ask you this. So Eli, what was your impression of, or what kind of stood out in your mind about going to Bluff Creek as somebody who hasn't been there before?
It was scary. I don't know.
Elaborate. Man, a few words, apparently.
Well, it's the mountains, and it was really hot. And when you're in Louse Camp, are you asking about Bluff Creek, the area in general?
Just in general, like before you had never been to this area before. After having been there,
well, explain tell them what you thought initially, because I don't think you heard that.
Well, no, I was just saying how I thought it was a lot more remote than I had initially imagined, especially Louse Camp, as it was the end of the road as opposed to the first place you stop.
Oh, yeah. Louse Camp was like way out there. Yeah, it was. The sketch factor is high because it's just so remote, like Alex is saying. It's like out there, like going up there on par with some of the places we were at in Maine, you know? And then just the history of the Native Americans being there and everything like that kind of added. I mean, we all kind of feel it, right? In Louse Camp, it's a little spooky.
We were just talking about that, yeah.
Yeah, and then of course, I don't know if you guys talked about the rock slide or whatnot. Our grand
we haven't gotten into
entrance.
the details yet, but let's might as well just jump right into that. So, without giving too much away, I don't know how to do this without giving too much away. We'll just tell the story. It's just a story as it is. It'll be elaborated in the episode. I'm not one of these people who's like, oh, you have to wait to see, about the story. I'm going to tell you how it is. So the first night when Tate and Eli and I were driving in, we had this kind of interesting incident happen, driving down almost to Louse Camp, and had this strange kind of rock slide incident. Anybody want to kind of give their side of the story, I suppose?
But you want me to go first?
Go for it, Tate.
I'll say this real quick.
Go
As an outsider, I showed up to you guys, met you guys, heard the story, and was like, really? You guys just got there and that happened? And so I heard the story, and then you guys showed me the video. And it was like, so don't be afraid to tell the story right now.
Sure.
The video is going to be awesome, because I was like, there's no way that this happened in one take on the camera in succession, just the way they told the story. It was really good. So I'll let you take it away.
Well, it was Eli. I got to give credit all to Eli, because I was not even filming. We were, okay, I'll let you get into it, Tate, but basically we had to stop in front of this rock slide area. You have the hill on one side, the shelf, that's the road basically, and then the hill going down into the creek. And there was rock slide all the time. So there's big piles of rocks, and we had to stop to move rocks to get our cars through.
My car was going to make it, but
Eli's car was struggling a bit, but I got to give credit to Eli. He started filming right away. Yeah. I mean, how long is that video on your phone? It's like a few minutes long.
It's like 3 minutes. Yeah.
The entire sequence as it happens. So basically we're clearing these rocks. I had thought I had heard something on the ridge above, and when I got out of the car, but I didn't really say anything, as I thought, I could hear Tate throwing rocks down the other side. So I was thinking, it's just the echo or the reverb. I didn't really say anything. It wasn't until we started getting over there and throwing rocks that I thought I heard some kind of some kind of a vocal of some sort. I say it, and then you guys were like, oh, I don't know, it's just rocks, and you kept throwing the rocks. Immediately after that, we're listening to these rocks tumbling down the hill. I start seeing rocks coming down from the hill above us, and I see rocks about this big flying right at me. And in the video, I mean, we start cursing a lot. We're cussing and running backwards, and you guys run the other direction. Yeah. And that was what happened in the first part. So I mean, Tate, you should give your side of the story.
No, I mean, that's pretty much exactly what happened. I was leading you guys because you guys didn't know where to go, and I was trying. So you guys were kind of far behind me, and I was further up because it was really dusty, and you guys were getting a lot of the dust from my truck.
Yeah, this was at night, by the way. I should mention, folks. This is like 9. Yeah, it was like, almost 10 p.m.
Yeah, it wasn't too late, but it was still dark enough that you couldn't see. Yeah. So I was trying to move some of these rocks because I knew there was a couple spots that would be pretty sketchy for Eli's car because he's driving this little Toyota Corolla with these really sketch tires. And Louse Camp is very far out there. It's not far out there with a car, but without a car, if you have no tires, it's a long ways in. So I was trying to pick up these rocks so he didn't puncture his tire, and I was starting to throw them down the creek, and you could hear them hitting the creek bottom. Yeah. And Alex and Eli start getting out and helping me throw them. That's when you're like, did you hear that? I'm like, And then all of a sudden, those rocks started coming down. I don't know what it could have been.
Well, you mentioned immediately after the dust settled, so to speak, you said that as you looked up there, you thought you'd seen eye shine. I mean, that's in the video of you saying that you thought you saw something up there.
Well, I thought I saw eye shine before, but I don't know. Thinking back at it, it's I don't know if it was, because when we went up there the next day, where I saw the eye shine, there was nowhere any animal could really perch up there and watch. Because I saw the eye shine below that little ridge, the ledge. Right,
but here's the thing: the spot where the rocks fell from was the one little area. There was a clearing where there were no trees. So my fingers are the trees. This was what it looked like, basically. That's where the rocks came from. There was a gully that the rocks traveled down from, and I was convinced at the time the rocks for sure were going to hit Tate's car, because there were some big ones. I mean, they were big enough that we all freaked out and ran in opposite directions away from it. And I mean, it was kind of funny and scary in the same moment. But what was so weird about that was, once we started to look around and we're pointing flashlights up in that area thinking, oh, is there something up there, or was it random? We hear something down toward the creek walk or move away. That's what was really weird about it.
Yeah,
Eli, if you want to give your side, I think, get the full spectrum here.
I mean, you guys kind of covered it. Because the rocks, they were small at first, and they got really big, and I thought they were going to hit Tate's car. And they certainly would have done damage to us if they had hit us, So I'm thankful, none of us got hurt. They didn't hit any of the vehicles, But the whole thing just felt coordinated, If you could, I know you guys felt the same way. It's just almost felt like
strange.
Oh yeah, it was beyond strange. So
I don't want to say that I think what I think it is, but
I know
it's very possible that it was a bear. Coincidental. I mean, the timing was just perfect if that's the case. So after that, I mean, it was dark. We're not even at camp yet. We're all pretty tired. We started out that day in the redwoods. We hung out with Bobo. We had done a lot that day, so we decided, there's not much else we can really do at night. Let's just go to camp. So we get to Louse Camp, not that far from there. And then we were there pretty much the entire next day in Louse Camp, just the three of us. So we had plenty of time to go around. And then we actually went to that spot. We went into the road. We flew a drone around and saw that there's a road actually up an old road where that cliff is, basically. So we actually hiked up there then. And then we tried to experiment, recreate a rock slide up there. And what was so interesting about it was there's a little bit of a lip where the cliff was, and that was very sandy and very small pebbles. There were no large rocks. To replicate what I felt happened,
I had to gather the rocks.
I had to take a pile of rocks, including, decently sized ones, put them right there and push them over. And then we spent a while, throwing different sized rocks, like on that big rocks that was too big, about medium sized rocks, where they still could have done some damage, but not fatal, I don't think.
When we were there, when we were pulling up, you and I, the next day, you got out and you were telling me the story, and I was like, interrupting your story. I was like, hold on, I've been up there. I stood at that very ledge right there, and it's literally flat, and it just jumps down like this, and there's gravel there. It's not like if you stand toward the edge, things start to slide. That doesn't happen there. It's a plateau, and it goes straight down. And I started telling you, I go, no. Big rocks like that aren't going to fall from there. You literally have to go walk back, grab one, and push it over or throw it over. I go, I don't see how it's something that could have slid off, pushed over by an animal, or in some sort of little perfectly timed natural landslide. That doesn't happen.
Because I've been out, you said, I've been out there numerous times. I would go when I was living in California. I go there twice a year.
Right.
3 years, and I've driven over that spot hundreds of times. There's that rock slide, and there's that other rock slide we drove up a couple nights or later. I've never had rocks really fall down like that anytime I've ever been there, ever. That was the first time.
It was super strange because it was right as we got in there, and the fact that there was the noise that I had heard before, the possible movement, and then the movement we kept hearing afterwards down in the creek.
Yeah.
It's so ambiguous, as this subject often is. I mean, did we just have an encounter with a mountain lion or a bear that was pushing rocks down? Was it something else? I really have no idea. But what I do want to do here real quick is let's share this. I actually have a short video from that. I'm not going to show the actual video, but here's the setting. So I don't know if there'll be sound on this, but hopefully we're not cursing, as half of our videos from this trip were unusable audio. So let me see if this will work now. Oh, yeah, there we go. Oh, it's not loading. Is that loading for anybody? I'm not noticing it loading for me.
I'm seeing something.
Okay,
I see a still shot there.
Yeah.
Let me try it one more time. Might be my internet. It's also like a 4K video, but I just wanted to share it to show just the area of what that looked like. And of course, it's not working.
Hold on. Let me,
I'm trying to figure this out. Let's try it one more time here. It just keeps freezing.
Hey, wait.
Whatever.
I'm gonna.
I don't want to kill the vibe here with this technology not cooperating as always.
Try this. I just sent. Look in Facebook. Try that. I took a video from above.
I'm not gonna be able to do it right now. My screen won't let me. I'm just gonna show my screen here. I will share the screen that I already have pulled up here. So let's just do that. What am I doing here? Share screen. We're not gonna be able to have sound on this, but it'll give you at least what it looks like, that area.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's exactly where the rocks came down.
So that's where the rocks came. That little spot
go.
right there. So that is where they slid from. And if you see the trees up there, that's kind of that area.
Can you zoom back, go back to that where it's zoomed in a little bit?
Sure.
No, okay, pause right there. Now, if you see that tree up to the right,
Yeah.
with your mouse, and then go down directly below it, there's like
Yep.
that little edge. That's where I saw the eye shine. This rock out facing right there. Down, no, down right more. Right there.
Really interesting. Okay.
That's where I thought I saw eye shine.
Which would be really weird because that's a super steep area to be.
And like even for a fox, that would be really hard because it's right there where you saw the rocks come down. That's really steep.
And it's extremely steep. I mean, if you were just up here, standing up there, I mean, if you're afraid of heights, it wouldn't exactly be a fun spot to be. But here's a zoomed out view. Nope, that's not a zoomed out view. Here's a zoomed out view. So this is where the road basically was, where we were at. So.
And up there's the old logging, or up there's the old road.
Yeah, so above that is an old logging road that is no longer in use. It's overgrown. You have to hike up there. A lot of trees, debris in the way.
Yeah.
The Daniel Perez Memorial Highway.
The Daniel Perez Memorial Highway, where he lost a trailer of.
A trailer full of important documents and research, but you guys heard it differently.
Crazy stuff.
Do we want to get into that story? I don't know. Let's focus on what happened to us.
No, yeah, we'll focus on that. It's just you get these kinds of areas, and a lot of stuff happens over time when you're out in these spots. So let me see. Actually, we'll kind of wrap this story up here, and I want to get everyone's thoughts, but I do want to pull up a quick little video here and just see if we can find something that'll show comparison.
Is that Ron?
Is that Eli?
I was like, why is he getting so close to the screen?
Okay. Let's try this. So I'm going to share another little short video here.
Hey, you're smiling.
So this is right.
Rarity.
This is at the cliff up here. So as you can see, Tate is about to throw a rock down that way.
Dude,
so this is basically the cliff, right? You can see the type of rocks there. There's nothing huge there. I mean, if I took my foot and just swooped it, I could kick all those little pebbles down, disregarding the rock Tate just put there. The rocks we saw were bigger than that. So, so there you can see down. That's basically the view. So if something was standing down in here, that would be extremely weird, pretty dangerous. I don't know how we'd be able to get up fast without us hearing it. It's not that far. I mean, this is maybe only 40 feet down. But you can see the amount of dust it kicks up. And at night, that dust, maybe that gives something cover to kind of pull itself away. But if it was just at the little edge of the cliff, I mean, it could just be standing there watching us. But the great thing about that area is the road. If you're standing up on that old road, you can see cars coming in for miles. So you would have been able to see our headlights at night coming in a long ways.
Alex, think of this. This could have been creepy, but it doesn't have to necessarily be standing. It could have. Let's just say, for argument's sake, it was a Bigfoot, right? If that was the case, it could have been laying down the whole time.
Right.
So another thing from that same perspective that you were showing right now, that tree root goes down right there, and Tate, you were saying the spot where you saw that eye shine. Is it plausible that something was standing in the exact same spot that angle, that last angle we saw, and it was through those fallen roots right there, and it could have looked like it was on the mountainside, maybe?
Well, I wonder if it was just my eyes playing tricks on me because we've been on
right
day, or and I know we did see a lot of fox that trip. So what if it was maybe a fox and ran up the hill, and then just so happened there was a deer in the creek at the bottom?
Right. The thing that gets me about if it was in that spot where you think you saw the eye shine, that's just such a dangerous spot for whatever reason. Why would an animal be in that spot? I'm not saying I think anything was there. I just find that interesting. Let me share one more thing here. This is a drone video showing kind of going right up that ledge there. So you can see how it flattens out up there.
You can kind of get the steep.
That's the road, and you see how steep it is.
Yeah.
So this is your
drone video.
Drone
is that mine?
This is your
drone.
drone.
That's your drone.
Yeah.
Oh, this is when it was wigging out.
Oh, so it must some glitch. So okay, here you can have a view. This is the road that comes up here, and it goes all the way down towards this way. And we actually walked down there. We put a trail camera down in that area, but we also put a pheromone chip, one of these Sasquatch pheromone chips right up here. We thought, why not try that? Might be an interesting place to put it. But as is so often with this subject, pretty inconclusive overall. But it was interesting to hear Jonathan's perspective. I'm curious about what Ron has to say. As somebody that wasn't there when it happened, unlike Tate and Eli and I, Jonathan kind of said what he felt. What did you think when we kind of told you that story, and then going to that location?
Right. I was glad I got to go and check that area out with you guys to retrieve that pheromone chip and the trail camera. It's a pretty interesting spot. I look at that and I can't say that any of the rock stuff is, there is potential there for a lot of slides. You can look at the side of the slope and see that there's a lot of erosion from whatever circumstances. You can look at that two different ways. You can either have something up there regularly throwing rocks down whenever a car's in the area, or you can look at it as like some type of natural explanation with erosion and just rocks are constantly falling. It is weird though that they did fall when you guys were there, and I would kind of chalk that up to similar circumstances that we have in the South and the Southeast. We don't have rocks, we don't have rock slides, we don't have a lot of loose dust that drops stuff and is kind of easy to dislodge. We have deadfall trees a lot. And so in the South, when we get into an area that is pretty squatchy and we've just arrived and there is some strange kind of vibe going on, instead of rock slides, we get trees falling. And it's one of those things too. It's trees you don't normally witness them falling in the woods,
right?
On their own. It's very rare. I don't think I had that happen the whole 6 months I was hiking the Appalachian Trail and camping out almost every night. And yet when I go out Bigfooting it, it seems like it's a good bet, 20% of the time, if you're in there for an extensive period of time, and you're in the right spots, you can almost guarantee, if there's knocks and you get closer to where those knocks are coming from, then a tree's going to fall too. But in regard to being up there with you guys, it's a great visual, but then even higher up, if you guys, that last shot that you showed from the drone, you can see there was even more of a ridge that went up that was kind of forested. And I climbed up there to see what was up there. And it's almost like a flat area, kind of like a plateau type flat surface, like a tabletop, but it's wooded and there's trees there, but there's a lot of room to move around. And even if we were talking about it, even if we had gone up there when you guys had what was going on, if you guys went up there, then there was still another shelf that something could climb and still have the high ground from you guys. So to me, that's an area that's got a contingency plan for okay, something's coming up after you've tried to discourage it. Okay, go up another level, go up another level. And then from the other side, you could actually survey a lot of that area from the top of there. You can kind of look at the greater Louse Camp area from the very tippity top of that. So it's a very interesting spot. It's a very good scouting location if you're trying to survey the landscape and any activity in that domain. So
totally. Yeah. And that's why I put a trail camera on that further down that road. I thought, we might get a mountain lion or something using this old road, or a bear, as animals they'll use the path of least resistance as well, just like humans. But
this is something that until now, just hearing what Ron was saying, you wonder why Bluff Creek still has activity out there. And then as we learned on that trip, and just I'm thinking about it now, it's like, yeah, that is a perfect vantage point for anything to watch anybody coming in from
Right.
that direction. So it's like they're going to know you're there regardless. So if you're going to try and go there and fool them, that's a fool's game, especially in Louse Camp. They're going to see you coming from miles away in that area. So they
Right.
perch up there and then come check you out at night. And no wonder that place probably has so much activity happening all the time. Because if you think about that, it is an old road, and that would be a better travel for a lot of animals with less like brush to go through, since it is an old road.
Well, I don't want to make this the rock slide episode, but I do want to add one last thought about that. Which was interesting, the fact that we heard movement coming from down the creek. So we were throwing those rocks down. If there was a person down that creek at that time, it would have been terrifying. You have rocks flying down in the creek, splashing, probably hitting maybe as scared as we were getting rocks thrown at us from the one layer if you were down a further layer. So what was so weird was the fact that as we kind of all thought, it maybe felt coordinated in the sense that once these rocks came down from above us, we focused our attention there and stopped throwing rocks downhill, and something moved away. Did we interrupt something? A hunt maybe? Did we was there two whatever animals, and one was trying to focus our attention away from throwing these rocks down and terrifying this area? I don't know. There's a lot to think about. I don't think we're ever going to get an answer to this, as is so often with this subject. But either way, it was a super interesting incident. I do want to read some of the comments that people have to say about that, because I like to hear what the audience has to say. Gerald says, sounds like a 70s TV movie of the week, creature in the woods type of thing. Could very well be. I don't know.
It's an episode of Lost Tapes.
Right. Man, Mothman 46 says maybe a Thunderbird kicked them up with the turbulence of his takeoff. That's pretty good. Possibly. Jeremiah says y'all got sniped by a Squatch. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't. I don't know. It's just playing jokes on us. Kim says that looks like a steep path. Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, when we were talking about if Tate had seen Eyeshine lower, that would be a very strange place for an animal to be. Craig says Squatch yeet some rocks at you. Yeet. Awesome. And then Jeremiah also adds, listen to Daniel Perez on Bigfoot and Beyond if you want to hear his crazy camper story. That's why we call it the Danny Perez Memorial Highway. Yeah. So let's take a few questions before we kind of dive into some of the other stories. Kevin asks, in the movie Willow Creek, they portray some locals as anti-Bigfoot types who might mess with out-of-towners. Did you experience anything like that? Maybe someone like that caused the slide? It's a good question.
Maybe that guy at the Omaha statue.
Call it a motion picture.
Call it a motion picture.
Maybe it was the same guy from the actual movie, because that was like 100 yards away where that was filmed. The apple pie at the cafe, dude.
Yeah, we'll call it apple pie. Yeah.
That was filmed like 100 yards from this incident, right?
Yeah, people have seen the movie Willow Creek. So we basically in Louse Camp, there's a lot of scenes filmed right up the road. There were scenes filmed. That guy trying to get them out of the PGF site was filmed right at the start to this road that we were up, where this rock slide incident would have happened. Do I think it was possibly people? Absolutely not. I mean, there was nobody out there at the time. If they were on foot with no vehicle. And just hiding out in that area. That's the only way it was possibly a human.
Yeah.
There's no way. There's just no way. Like, nobody gets in there and does something like that. Not there. It's too.
Unless there's a tribe of people living out there. I mean, that's like I said, the only possibility. I don't think that's realistic.
It was either a trimagrant that was really high or other Bigfooters.
Some Bigfooters messing with us, but there was nobody else there.
Nobody else there.
In all seriousness,
not even close.
You can hear those cars coming.
Tate, Eli, and I were the only people in Louse Camp basically until Wednesday, when more people started showing up. So this was on a Monday night that we came in. We were there all day Tuesday. We didn't run into anybody basically.
We went to other places above, like the opposite direction. Nobody was there up there either.
Yeah, it was during the week. There was nobody there. It wasn't until Wednesday when Jonathan and Ron both came in, as well as other Bluff Creek members and lots of other people. So that's what was pretty interesting. Now, Greg asks, "What is the strange vibe? Can you describe the feeling?" I don't know if that's in reference to Louse Camp, maybe, or just in general.
I think so.
It's going to be the reference to Louse Camp.
I think for me the strange vibe was, like we said, you're surrounded by these tall trees, so you got to understand there's Douglas fir trees there, and if you've seen old growth Douglas firs, they're on par with some redwoods in terms of how massive they can be. Yeah, so you're surrounded by that, and you're in this bowl, as Tate was saying earlier. You have the creek right there, so you can't really, if something was to sneakily walk in, you really wouldn't hear it. I mean, with your ear to the creek, it's just pretty loud. It's flowing through that area. There's a nice, beautiful crystal blue pool to swim in right outside of camp there. So it's just, I don't know, it's creepy.
And not only that, but like there's been sightings from Bobo.
Yeah.
That strange thing that Jonathan got. I had something happen there. We had the rock slide incident. Literally just, I swear, I'm not even exaggerating. It's a stone's throw away from last camp. And then Jerry Crew cast a
nice one, Tate. See what you did there.
Yeah. That's good fun.
Jerry Crew casted tracks literally right at that spot where we had the rock slide happen. The Pacific Northwest Expedition, held by Tom Slick, with like Renee DeHenden and Bob Tinton, those guys. That was at Louse Camp. I mean, so you have everything like that you hear all throughout the years. It does add to that vibe. There's no doubt about it.
So Jeremiah says it was those dang Trinity Alps salamander boys.
Dude, yeah, it was.
They weren't there just yet, but they even had, I don't know if you have to jump into that, but
let's
some weird stuff go on at the exact same spot. It was within 150 yards.
Let's get into that. I want to get into that. I do want to answer one quick question though. Kim says, "My first time hearing about pheromone chip. What is that, please?" They're gross.
Wait. Save the pheromone chip stories for later, because like.
No. I'm gonna pull it out and show it. I'm not gonna pull the actual chip out, but so okay, you have to see. So pheromone chips, basically what they are.
You keep those in your room.
I have my gear bag. I still have to unpack. So basically, what they are is they were developed by Dr. Greg Bambanek. Trying to make sure my hands don't smell like it. And they are they're used certain secretions from humans and gorillas, scents, to might attract things. Trying to be as vague and as not as vulgar, but it was developed by Dr. Greg Bambanek, I think at the request of Doug Hychek, and they used it at the Skookum expedition. It's been used a lot since then. They're basically these they're scent lures. So this guy, Dr. Greg Bambanek, aka Dr. Juice, he is a scent lure specialist for hunting and fishing lures. So I have a bag of these. I have they're in like 3 different plastic containers because this stuff is rancid, smells terrible. I can already smell it a little bit. So I'm not going to reveal too much. See if I can flip it this way. I have it in an ice cream jar. You can see Sasquatch pheromone right there. And let's see. I'm going to make myself the full screen. Yeah. So there's string in there, but they're these orange chips, and you can hang them up, put them in, and they retain smell for quite a while. But, man, they smell absolutely awful. So that's, again, why I have it in not only 1 plastic bag, but 3. And inside of the jar within another jar. So it's Russian Nesting Dolls Pheromone Chip Edition.
Gross.
So let me please just get these wrapped up before we continue, because that's gross.
I just really wanted to get to my badass idea that I had in Portland. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, we will, totally. Moving on. So let's talk about this other incident. I don't know. This is the incident show. I guess we're just going to talk about the highlights and the weird stuff. Real quick, PGF site, we didn't really have much happen, but as I mentioned earlier, we camped right at the PGF site. But let's talk about the other incident I guess we had happen. No. We want to talk about the dog thing with Bandit first.
Oh, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was
Ron, you were there.
Jonathan,
I was there at that point.
Yeah, I think Jonathan, he knows the story pretty well. I
So-
want him to tell it, and then Ron will follow up with kind of the story about Bandit, or the summation.
So it's kind of a trip. We all walked down, a group including like Jamie Wayne from the Bluff Creek Project, and Ken Gerhard was there. The salamander guys, how they called them, because there was a group of guys that went up there looking for this Trinity giant salamander, God knows where. Well, they ended up at Louse Camp since it was on the way, and they're getting this introduction to where they found Jerry Crew found those footprints and cast them, yada yada yada. And as Jamie is telling the story, he turns around and says, "Oh, look, it's a wolf." Well, it was Bandit, Ron's dog, who is
Awesome adventure dog.
awesome adventure dog, like awesome, and he'll tell you about it. But I noticed him kind of walking, taking this slow little stride to the side of the road, and then all of a sudden just like climb into the bushes. And he's been all around us. He's running all around us constantly throughout this trip. So I thought he was going to come on back. But then Ron comes up and goes, "Have you guys seen Bandit?" I go, "Oh, I just saw him over there." Well, he went to go get Bandit. He's going, "Well, what's going on? What's going on?" And we look, and dragging this greatly experienced dog over here. The dog's cowering, tail between its legs. Now, just before that, me and one of the salamander people, the guys who were looking for this giant salamander, both of us did kind of a head turn down the creek. The same creek in the same general area. I want to say within maybe 100 or 200 yards, maybe, of where the rock throwing incident
It's
happened.
around the bend. I mean, where we were, if you just go around the bend, is right where the slide was.
So we heard a little bit of commotion. I looked back.
There's Bandit.
Did you hear that? There's Bandit. I go, "Did you hear that?" He said, "Did you hear that?" I said, "Yeah, a little strange." And that was right when Bandit started making his way over there. Next thing you know, Bandit doesn't want to walk anywhere. Totally scared. Now, I known Bandit for like 2 days at that point, and it was weird to me. But Ron, I mean, it was weird to you. You were telling us more about Bandit and his character.
Yeah, so I mean, I knew a lot of people there, and I had a lot of connections from the Salamander group because it was the Texas Cryptozoology gang, and I had met them at the Jefferson conferences and stuff. So when you walk 2,000 miles with your dog on in the Appalachian Mountains, and then subsequent 100-mile hikes like after that in different places, you get kind of content with like letting him go, not just like off leash, but a little ahead and with the group, and stay with the group. And he always stays around people. And as a shepherd dog, he likes to keep everybody together. So if I'm tailing behind, I have confidence that he's going to run up and check on everybody in the front and then stay with them and trailblaze a little bit, but then come right back. He doesn't really engage with wildlife. His goal is to keep everybody together. So if he sees an animal, that's not his priority. So he doesn't go and chase after bears and things that could hurt him. So I've had Bandit. He's 11 years old now, and I've been hiking with him for 10 of those years, and he only really gets scared like that if we're outside. He's not in a house and there's close by gunfire or fireworks, which of course we weren't really experiencing. And if he's far enough away from camp, home, or the vehicle that he can't go back to those locations, he does like what we were observing. He'd duck out to the side and hide. And what's weird is usually I can work him up to coming back, and come back with me. But he didn't want to go downhill, and there was something from that area that just like he didn't want to get any closer to. He was trying to go up the mountain, and when everybody turned aside, he was trying to hide in the bushes. So I had to get him. I think, didn't we use what did we use as a leash?
Jonathan's belt.
We used your belt as a makeshift leash because I had to like pull him back down the hill, and he was freaking out, tail between the legs, darting back and forth, really nervous of something until we got past the Jerry Crew Bridge and more or less back into camp. Something to that dip, that downward ridge from the road. That's kind of, I guess we were walking up the hill to the right. He didn't want anything to do with that area. So it wasn't until we were past that he started to normalize back in camp. But he seemed a little funky and a little off his his balance or his normal behavior, like for the next couple of days. Like he was almost in like some shock or something.
Right. And you were concerned. I mean,
he didn't have any physical damage or anything.
You were kind of concerned after that. I remember you were talking about even cutting your trip short if you didn't, kind of get better.
Yeah, he wasn't really ready to hike, and at that point we were considering going to Colorado, and he was not in like hiking condition. I think what did it was he was off put to the point where he didn't drink any water or anything. He didn't want to go to the stream, and he wouldn't drink any water I brought into camp that whole night. And I think all the hiking that we did made him really dehydrated, and his muscles were aching the next day because he was definitely hurting. And it was I feel like it's because he wasn't of the sound mind to kind of eat and drink accordingly.
It was odd to me that he had looked down the road and thought, why is he over there? The whole group's over here. He kind of wandered off on his own.
Yeah.
I have it on camera. It's going to be in the video. He just kind of in the background there walks on over to like he's checking something out down that creek. And then we went back to Jamie talking. And why was he down there? Very weird.
It was strange. I mean, and we spent, not only those few days in Bluff Creek with Bandit, but even after in Oregon, he was with us the whole time. We had some weird stuff happening, and he had not acted like that. I mean, you obviously know Ron. I mean, you don't have to leash him all that often. He's a super friendly, super nice dog. So it was just strange to see. I've never seen a dog with his tail firmly between his legs. I mean, his tail was constantly
and he doesn't do
his
that.
His tail was like in between his legs. It was crazy.
Yeah, and I think, and the only thing I could think of there was he might have smelled something, heard something, or saw something in that low light that we weren't able to pick up on. Because even if you guys heard knocks or anything in that area, knocks have never set him off like that. Like he might observe that the sound's coming from a different direction. He'll look up in that direction, but has, other than that, no reaction. It's just kind of a noise of the woods. So he either doesn't make that assumption or it just doesn't set him off. So I don't know if there was some type of, if it was Bigfoot related, if it was some type of like subtle, non-verbal or non-physical way of like letting out aggression. They talk about how apes release really pungent odors.
Yeah.
Like as a statement of, territory, claiming territory. But
maybe it was those pheromone chips.
Maybe he just caught a bad downward draft or something.
Yeah, it was strange either way. But that was another one of these kind of incidences that you can't really, I mean, there's nothing conclusive or anything that we can say about it. It's just weird. It's another one of those weird stories, of which this trip was filled with many. Now, as we're kind of moving on here, I guess No-Go Valley, right? We had some interesting sort of stuff happen. We were basically in this valley area, extreme good visibility, and we saw what could be described as a UFO, I suppose, by definition of the word, unidentified flying object. Now, Ron wasn't there, but that was Tate, Eli, Jonathan, and I, and we were there until like 5 a.m, man.
Yeah, we were. The sun was crescent at that point.
Yeah. So that was interesting. I don't really have a whole lot to say about that. It was just a strange light in the sky. I've seen UFOs or supposed UFOs before, but I know, Eli, you haven't seen anything like that. What was your kind of first impression?
I mean, I don't know. We all thought it was a satellite at first, just because of the speed it was moving. Then we realized it wasn't up in the stars. It was in the atmosphere, and I personally don't think what we saw was extraterrestrial or anything. I don't know what it was. It didn't look like a craft of any kind. It was just like literally just a ball of light.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. And it kind of meandered. Hold on, I'm trying to organize myself. Yeah. So it was kind of like moving. It would bob up and down.
It's like a sputtering almost.
Stop and then just kind of keep going. And we watched it maybe 5-10 minutes. I don't know. It was moving super slow. So, again, Cliff was telling us later that he thinks it's one of the largest. That particular area is one of the largest Native American burial grounds in North America.
Oh, it definitely is. Yeah.
A lot of people have weird stories. Rowdy Kelly has seen, I guess, similar things there while at that location. I have the video here. I can pop it up real quick, where you can kind of see it. So I'm going to point it out. It's traveling in this direction.
Yeah, you see it.
So it looks just like a plane, but man, I don't know. It was really weird to the naked eye. We saw not only one, we saw a first one, and then this was a second one.
Yeah.
Is this video rolling, or is this a picture?
This is rolling. This is video. Yeah, it's just still.
You can see it going behind the tree now. You'll see it disappear in a second.
It's right behind the tree.
Oh, there it goes. Yeah. What tripped me out about, I mean, like, okay, I'm kind of an aviation buff. I love airplanes. I also love space stuff. So I'm constantly like fascinated to just watching satellites. Okay. And we had not seen any, as you can see behind those mountains at the horizon, the day's already breaking there. You can't see any satellites. I'd say about, if you look at the screen there, just a few inches above those trees, that's about where you maybe see like the brightest satellite. Below that, we weren't seeing anything.
Yeah.
It was strange because before Alex, you filmed that, Jonathan saw like, it wasn't a shooting star because
it looked like maybe space debris coming in from the atmosphere, but it happened so slowly. I want you to imagine a meteor just coming in and just a bright streak. Okay. And you know, a meteor would make an incredibly bright streak and then turn into what dwindled to nothing, I guess. This was like a crazy bright streak, and it lasted 3 or 4 seconds. Then it went down to like what looked like a satellite, and then it cruised along for another 3 or 4 seconds, and then just turned off. It happened way too slow to fit my interpretation of what space debris burning up in the atmosphere would be. That was weird. And then it was like 5-10 minutes later, we see this little orange orb cruising along, kind of like a balloon bounces in the wind.
Yeah.
And then we started going, did it just slow down? And then it would pick up again, slow down and pick up again. And it did that the entire horizon. It was just like, it was too weird.
It really was. I mean, it just the sputtering, I would describe it as. And what's funny is the first UFO I really ever saw was in Willow Creek. You know, at the night sky, we saw this 2016, this light zipping around in the sky. But Kim asks, was the ball of light changing color?
No.
It was a pretty constant yellowish, orangish color, at least from what I could tell.
Yeah.
Kevin has an interesting theory. He says Ron wasn't there for the rock throwing, and he wasn't there for the UFO. Suspicious.
Look, I tried to meet you guys like really hard to get to No-Go Valley, and I had a ape suit and everything, but unfortunately, I never got to as the kids say, punk you guys, because
settled for the UFO.
Because I got lost out there.
It's far. You're in the middle of nowhere, and we, like I said, we didn't get back to Louse camp until well into 5 a.m, and we all slept at least till 10 or 11, I think, that morning. You're just out, but you don't sleep that great camping in general. So that was another one of these weird things that happened. I mean, I have no explanation. I also agree with Eli. I don't think it was necessarily extraterrestrial. I don't know what it was. I've seen other craft that behaved a lot weirder than that, and just don't really know what to say about what it could have been.
I was mad, man.
Can you play that UFO clip once more? Yeah, I'll play it again. You go ahead, Jonathan.
I was mad, dude. I was like, I'm trying to look for Bigfoot out here. I'm seeing UFOs.
No.
I'm trying to look for now I got to get back to society and start telling them, oh, did you see Big? Nope. Saw UFOs.
No, I'm a UFO guy now too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's a paranormal thing, honestly.
Yeah?
Yeah. I do.
The setting, it's the setting's perfect for it.
Hey, is that car on top
could be
of that
secret aircraft from the military that we don't know about? I mean,
no,
it could be totally terrestrial, human-made.
Guys, all I can say is there's something on the hill.
So,
you got the mustache for it.
Oh God!
Yeah, I'm just playing that video again for the audience sake. It's kind of, I'm not really dragging the mouse over it now, but yeah, you can just see it's going between the trees. Now it looks like on the video, it looks kind of like a normal-ish aircraft, but interesting.
Yeah, but there was absolutely no noise.
I'm
coming
hearing
from
whispering, and I was just really creeped out. And it turns out it's from the video because it's playing through my headphones. So I thought one of you guys was trying to whisper to me, and I'm like, "What is going on right here?" It was us talking that night. Okay, but anyway, hey, strangeness. I think that's Aaron. What's going on, man? He says, "How often, when you're investigating Sasquatch or other specific phenomena, do you encounter these UFO type things?"
This was my second time that's happened.
For me, it's my third. And
first time for me.
Ron.
I mean, I wasn't doing Bigfoot stuff. I was hiking the AT, and I had a weird, what I thought was a satellite, pull a really sharp UE.
Right.
And then that's about it. And that's on Jeremiah's podcast. We talked about that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's been like Willow Creek, first time in Bigfoot country seeing one. Then in Pennsylvania, we saw that one I've talked about on the show before, Paulino, where we saw it moving through the sky and lights flying inside of it and out of it and back into it. As Kevin says, some people link Bigfoot with UFOs. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I don't know. I'm still not sold. Phil C brings up a good point. He says the atmosphere can make lights in the sky appear to wobble. That is true as well. We have to take into account our own faults as eyewitnesses. Maybe that's that. We all kind of were in the setting. I don't know. It was strange. I'm not going to say one way or another. I that's why I stick to it being a UFO by definition of the word, without having to carry the it's definitely aliens stigma. It's there's a possibility it could have been something else. But anyway, in summation, it was a strange incident in a strange area. And as Bigfoot Society says, Jeremiah, the Ron Reed episode of Bigfoot Society is a great listen for sure. Talk about that. Kevin says, I think Justin Chernopesky also mentioned seeing a strange light one of his Bigfoot hunts. Yeah, it seems to happen. I know people who have seen orbs in their areas, and I think it was Leon, Bigfoot Okanagan, was saying he may have theorized some sort of a explanation for seeing orbs out there. I don't know. I'll have to, if he's in the chat somewhere, feel free to bring it up.
I think it's also we're in the same places at the same time as like UFO people. Like, I mean,
that's true.
UFO people, they go out there, they stay up all night, wait to the darkest times of the night, middle of nowhere, clear skies, and they just stare up at the sky. And we're out there; it's pitch black. We can't see our hands in front of our faces. So while we're doing like knocks and calls, we're kind of waiting, and you see it on every research channel. They kind of start looking up because all you can see is the stars. There's no point in looking straight ahead. So you're looking up and. We're literally doing the same thing as UFO people.
Too. Yeah, we're laying in the road and looking up.
Oh,
that's the best way to get the view. But Rockite Man says, I'll let you get your point, Eli. Let me just read what he has to say. He says, for what it's worth, hard to tell looking at it on my smartphone, but if it was not flashing at all, it looks like a satellite. If it was bright, it might have been the International Space Station. Yeah, it's possible. I mean, it was just, it did not behave like other satellites, I suppose, that I've seen. Again, I'm not saying it was or wasn't. It's just a UFO.
Well, that's funny because that was the comment I wanted to respond to, is that we could tell, and I watched it for a while, a little bit after you guys stopped. It was in the atmosphere, like it was not up in the stars.
It was a lot slower than the International Space Station or satellite in general. We saw satellites that night,
and you could see it. The angle changed. Like in the video, it's only one angle, but I watched it go out towards the rising sun. And it was at a completely different angle, and then you could really see that it wasn't in space. It was there, in the valley somewhere.
Like I said, I love watching satellites, man. I love picking them out. I love watching them since I was like, many years ago. And it doesn't make sense with any satellite that I've ever seen in my life. I have a satellite tracker on my phone. I love watching that. I've seen the ISS. I watch the ISS almost every week that I can out here, and it doesn't make any sense for it to be the ISS. Although the ISS is extremely bright, it wasn't that, like you said, it was in the atmosphere. It was something inside.
And I want to point something out too. Where we were at that location, even not just the location we were at, but the whole region of the state, there's not a lot of airports and helicopters polluting, or it wouldn't be a helicopter, wouldn't be a plane, and there wasn't a lot of ambient light from cities.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a lot of pollution that would make us think otherwise it could be something else. we were seeing it clear as day,
Right.
and it was just really odd.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what else to say? Again, it was that we were out there bigfooting and other strange stuff happened. So, Mothman 46 says I have a text service that alerts me to the ISS flying over. We had no service out there, zero service. So there's even those apps you can get where you can point it up. It shows you the constellations and what satellites are flying. You know, we were so far in, we didn't have service for like 4 days in a row, basically being out there. You have no service until you get close to Willow Creek or right around Hoopa. So we're talking out there, really out there.
There's that one pocket. There's a couple pockets, but there's that one good pocket, like probably 5.
When you're up on the mountain, yeah.
Yeah, we call it the cell site because it's like the only place you can get cell service over there in the Bluff Creek region.
But not all people. Yeah, I could only get it very limited. Eli couldn't get anything. So
I could live stream on Instagram from there, but that was about it.
Well, good for you, Tate. What do you have? Verizon?
I have AT&T, which is probably one of the worst ones out there.
Wow.
Well, apparently it's better than
too.
T-Mobile.
But anyway, yeah, no, it was an interesting event. You know what I'm thinking here, guys, as the time goes on, do we want to just keep this episode California and maybe, I don't know if you guys want to come on next week and do an Oregon one?
Just keep it rolling.
Keep it rolling?
Keep it rolling. We're all here.
Fair enough.
Just don't shorten up our California stuff, man.
I'm not trying to shorten up. I'm saying, do we want to just keep going the rest of the night on the California stuff? That way we don't have to cram Oregon into it.
I'm 2.5 beers in. Keep it going. I'm not going to be the rest of the night.
Freaking Tate.
Oh, my God.
He measures everything he does and how many beers he has left.
Okay, well, because Sam tried to come in earlier, and he was only there for the Oregon part of the trip, and we can only fit, I guess, 5 people in here at a time. So
I will jump. If Sam wants to go in, I'll jump off for the Oregon one.
He's not here, so I think this would probably be better because I don't have a show lined up for next week. So do we want to? Let's just. I don't know if you guys are down.
I'm down.
Let's do the Oregon one, so we have all the time in the world. So now we can just keep focus on California.
Yeah.
So let's do that. So yeah, Kim says keep it rolling. Yeah, okay, we'll keep it rolling with the California stuff. Salvatore says, were you guys affected by wildfire smoke during your trip? Not in California. A little bit in Oregon, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, because it's crazy now on the East Coast out here. This morning I was driving around and man, it's super hazy, super smoggy. I guess that all those new fires that started out west after we had left have been the smoke's been rolling out here, so it's been pretty bad. But okay, so let's just talk a little bit real quick about the kind of going down to the PGF site before we get onto Laird Meadow, which I think is the kind of the fun, with the really interesting stuff happened for sure. So we went down to the PGF site, all 5 of us here, as well as Bandit, who's somewhere there in the background. And stayed a night at the actual frame 352 area, right where Roger and Bob would have been and where Patty would have walked through. So I had never been to the film site before. Obviously, Tate had plenty of times. Jonathan as well. Jonathan has camped there. Tate, that was your first time camping at the film site, I believe?
That was my first time. And Ron has been there before, too. That was his second time, I believe.
Second time at the film site. It was just cool to be in the spot where that happened, you know? That was really interesting.
It's like I said before, Laos Camp is creepy to camp in, even if you're car camping or tent camping. But camping at the film site was creepy, but not in the sense that Laos Camp has.
Right.
I didn't feel
I'll say
scared
it in this sense. This is how it's creepy to me. It looks like any other place up and down that stream. I've hiked like 1.5 miles to 2 miles up that stream, and there are plenty of places that look just like it. But none of those places had probably the biggest, the most highly detailed Bigfoot sighting of all time that had footprints, video, 2 credible witnesses, you know? So when you're there and you start to look around and you see the trees in the background and you see, oh, this is where Roger knelt on the log and filmed her. That's where she stood. This place starts to all of a sudden go from this jungle to turning into this, you can see the sandbar, you know, if you use your imagination, and all of a sudden it starts to come to life. And then you have to camp there. So to me in the sense that it gets creepy in that sense where like you visualize it being the film site so much, and you visualize the sandbar where the Sasquatch walk by, and then you set up your tent and there you are.
And just how different it looks from 50 something years ago, 1967, how much has grown in. It was really interesting having Rowdy come down there. Jonathan and Tate were telling us a lot about the film site, but when Rowdy Kelly came down, he showed us a lot of different stuff. The stumps that are still there, Smiley Stump, all these, they have code names, all these little stumps that are in the original footage that are still there, that are rotting away slowly over time. But what really kind of got me too, what I found interesting was that, I don't know, would you call it silt or the dirt that's in that area? It's deposited from the 1964 flood.
Yeah, it's like a thin sand, almost like a silt type deal.
It's like this silty gray sand that, if you dig up a little patch, I tried and I kind of punched it with my fist. There's a pretty good fist impression. That's how they got those really good casts at the time, because that deposit would have been a few years in there. 3 years at that point in 1967. That's why you have so many of the good patty casts. We did see some of the originals as well at the museum in Willow Creek. But that was just so cool to be in that spot. I mean, like I said, creepiness factor was practically non-existent. We just had a good time, talking and cooking food in that spot, and then packed up and left the next morning, found a salamander in the creek, and that was about it, and it was back to Louse Camp after that.
I didn't come out of my tent at the film site for like most of the morning. I had everybody was awake and like, walking around and had their crap packed up. I literally have my head out the tent door with it zipped up, so it's just my. Yeah,
of course. We were just hanging out at the film site that morning, but we did get to see Rowdy checking out all those trail cameras, which was super cool.
There was at least like four trail cameras just in that little spot we were camping in alone.
Right, and I think maybe that took a little bit of the creepy factor out of it.
Yeah, because we had cameras watching us the whole time. So, you know what? I would say if we got our deaths caught on camera, it would have been worth it.
No.
I thought of that, yeah.
No. I mean, I was in a different situation.
I'm camped off to the side.
Yeah, you're a savage, Ron. Jesus, man.
And I mean, I was thinking about going further back. Remember that first site I kind of eyeballed that it was almost like a campsite? That would have been like only halfway there. And the idea was to go out, hang out at the site, maybe even do some wood knocks and stuff. But then only when we're ready to go to bed, that's when I would go back to my tent. But after, we got to the camp, I started having second thoughts because not far from where I put my tent, we had found the mountain lion scat, which was old. But then like literally maybe 10 feet from my actual camp was semi-fresh bear scat. And, we saw those on Rowdy's when he pulled up the cameras and all the photos from the trail cams. Like there was like a bear that went through like every day.
There you go.
There was so much activity.
This is the video. This bear kept scratching his back up on this, and multiple bears on this same little thing right there on the trail cameras. And just every day, almost bear activity right in that area. You can see them coming through.
Hey, Jonathan, speaking of bears, can you tell that story? Because Jonathan and I shared a tent, and Eli and Alex were in a tent.
Oh, yeah. I scared the crap out of Tate. Dude. Yeah. First of all, well, it's a little creepy. It can get a little creepy out there, and kudos to Tate for pushing it, and he stayed out there. He was wanting to do it for over a year, and he did it. And so we set up and we shared a tent, and I go to lay down in the tent, and I lay down, and I realize I'm a little bit of an incline, so like my head is lower than my hips and feet, but I'm so tired at this point. It's like 2:30 or something like that in the morning, and I'm like, maybe I can just wait this out. And all of a sudden, we had a few tacos and I think a couple cold ones, and I started drifting off to sleep. Then I wake up because I have GERD, I have acid reflux, and it comes right up, and I start to choke on my acid reflux. So I get up, and all I hear is I start choking, and I hear Jake, "What was it, a bear or something?" And I'm going, I can't go. No, it's me, man. I'm like, and he's all freaked out, and I'm trying to tell him as quick as I can, and I can't. Finally, I turned the other way, and I was like, "It's my my acid reflux, dude, and I lay the other way so my feet are a little lower than my head.
God.
I was good from then on, but I could see how that was pretty damn scary.
I thought it was like a bear like coming up near our tent and trying to.
Because I did jump out of my sleep. I was like, ah.
So speaking of sleep incidents, Eli, do we want to share the dream story?
Story.
Yes, please.
This is like this is another one of the Louse Camp creepiness factors. So
Yeah, I believe it was.
you tell your side and I'll tell my side, Eli.
Sure, yeah. So this happened, I believe, the second night I was there. We were
Second
there.
or third night we were at Louse Camp, I think. Yeah.
And I was asleep, and it was me and Alex in the tent. Tate was in his I don't want to say the name. I don't know. He was in his car. He was sleeping in his car. And I had a dream that I was sleeping next to the creek cowboy style, so without a tent. And so the creek was on my right-hand side, the woods are on my left. And this coyote just kind of meanders out of the woods and starts sniffing me in my sleeping bag. And I'm just trying to like be still, pretend I'm still asleep. You know, hopefully he sniffs me and moves on. He starts attacking me, bites my arm. I go into fight mode, start screaming, punching, and then Alex, you can take over.
So I'm just sleeping, minding my own business, and I'm just I'm woken up by this horrific screaming and thrashing. Eli's, he's flailing his arms around. I thought for a moment he was having a seizure. I've lived with one of my friends, Stefan. People who are early days of the channel might remember. He commented a lot in the chat. I lived with him throughout college, and he had really crazy sleepwalking stuff. Like I saw him do some crazy stuff, but this was so shocking that it just happened so suddenly. I first thought, is he having a seizure? Is he having a heart attack? I mean, he was like, it was crazy the way he was acting, and he kind of calmed down. And then every time I thought he'd woken up the entire forest and we're about to be descended upon by who knows, what. But every time he moved the rest of the night, I'm like, Eli, are you okay? Because I didn't know what happened. And it wasn't until the morning that he told a story about having the coyote attack him in his sleep, which is, I guess, a nightmare, not a dream.
I was sleeping in my car, so I didn't hear that.
I got to read this comment from Shane Corson, who says, good thing Eli didn't wake up with a mouse in his tent.
Oh, my God. I'll never live it down. Live it down.
He'll never live that down. So we may have talked about that. When we were in the Olympics, we were hanging out with Shane and them at the nest site, and then we're getting ready to go to bed. And Eli had already been asleep, and I go into the tent. And I see this mouse jumping out over Eli, trying to get out of the tent. It's like this most exasperated effort to get out of the tent as I'm shining a light on it. Funniest moment. And then Eli is now stuck with that incident forever. So good to see you. Shane says, sorry, brother. Well,
it's okay.
Thanks for sharing the story, Shane. Shane's awesome. But and we'll maybe we can talk to him about next week's show if we're going to do the Oregon thing. But anyway,
Alex told me, he's like, dude, I have my gun and everything ready to go.
Oh, crazy! So Eli, what else happened with the rest of that? That story. You want to tell us the other part?
This is the part where it goes from being a funny story to being like, wait, what? That's weird. I think it was that Friday. Jamie Wayne was there, and he's a member of the Bluff Creek Project. And I told him this story. It's just kind of a funny thing. And then he doesn't laugh. He doesn't smile. He just goes, "Oh, it's pretty significant. You would have a dream about a coyote here." And I was like, "Why is that?" And Jamie went to community college with a lot of the Hoopa and Yurok people. And
I think he took cultural studies at their center or something like that. I don't remember.
Something like that. He's pretty tight with them. That's what I know.
No, for sure.
And so he tells me in Yurok folklore, if a coyote appears to you either in physical or in dream form, it means you're not welcome there. And I was like, why are you telling me this?
That explains the rock slide.
No.
And the fact that Louse Camp specifically was a Yurok hunting ground. That's what Jamie had told me as well. We were hanging out by Notice Creek, and he told me this was, traditionally the Yurok were more present here than some of the Hoopa or the Karuk, but they were all sort of in that area. And then we heard some stories even when we were talking to Cliff up in Oregon. He was talking about his time down in Bluff Creek, and it's some guy that he knew who could call animals, who was a Karuk, and just some really, again, adds that mystique of Louse Camp. Bobo was telling us his stories. He had seen a kind of a skinny, emaciated looking Bigfoot and had another incident there at Louse Camp. I think some other folks told us a story about seeing like a face there. Just a lot. Louse Camp, something about it, man.
I never heard that story that Jamie told you, but hearing that makes Last Game even more creepier than it already is. I mean,
so that was quite the incident. But and then
don't forget we watched Willow Creek, the movie, in Louse Camp where they filmed it.
We did. So we were like glamping, I guess you could call it. We had a projector. We had a projector screen, and we're watching the Willow Creek movie in Louse Camp, where a bunch of the scenes were filmed. The movie's not great. Most Bigfoot people will know it. It's, there's a lot of funny quotes and funny stuff, but it's cool to see the movie while you're in the location of where it's going on. So I thought that was fun.
It was such a good night. That was just a good night, fun night. We were eating like burgers and hot dogs, and we're drinking this really amazing cider that we bought in Willow Creek, and we're watching Willow Creek where they filmed it in Louse Camp.
And we bought the ciders because as we were driving through Eureka, we saw a truck that had a Bigfoot on it, a van. That was the company of the cider. So we saw it in the Willow Creek, and we're like, oh, might as well just grab that. But,
yeah. No, that's not what happened.
That is what happened.
No, Bubba had to go to the store for something, and we were in the store, and I saw this beer, or I heard it was beer. I was like, dude, there's Bigfoot on it.
Okay, but because Eli and I saw the truck earlier, I have it filmed, so that's why I was like, oh, that's the one. Anyway, not really important. But side note, so yeah, good times in Louse Camp, creepy times. Notice Creek, amazing swimming, beautiful spot. But what's so cool about that area is not only you're at Louse Camp, but you have Bluff Creek and the film site. You have all these other areas, Onion Mountain, Laird Meadow. There's all these locations that have had history over the past century, I guess you could say, with tracks being found. That's where a lot of the expeditions happened. A lot of the famous characters, Renee DeHinden, all these kind of people over the years have been in these areas. So we decided to spend our last night going to Laird Meadow, which is not really that close to Louse Camp, right? It's kind of...
I would say it's probably a few miles.
But driving there on some gnarly back roads takes a while.
Yeah, probably 15 minutes.
It did not feel like 15 minutes. It's like 2 a.m. I don't know. Maybe my sense of time was off, but
it felt like a while to me too.
Yeah,
we always stopped though. We always stopped about halfway because the cell site's up there, kind of on the way.
That's the other way.
We went to the quarry. We stopped at the quarry though.
First,
that
we
was
went
the
to quarry
first.
first.
Right, yeah.
No,
then we went to Laird Meadow.
Oh yeah, you're right.
It wasn't that close. I mean, I remember because I was snuck a nap in, I think, both on the way up and down.
Well, okay, so
yeah.
Okay, here's why you think it was far. We did go to the quarry, which is actually past Laird Meadow.
Oh, okay.
Then we went to the other cell site spot, which is the top of the world. So, like during the day, you could see the whole valley of.
That's right.
Bluff Creek.
I remember I was reading comments on the Beyond the Trail main video, like the nasty comments that we were getting about people saying, boring town campers and just like the funny stuff like that. But I remember that incident. That's true.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so
we were dying. That was fun.
From Louse Camp was probably 15, 20-minute drive by dirt road. If you want to go slow and don't want to get a hole in your tire, yeah.
Right. So yeah, after that, we go to Laird Meadow, which is a location where tracks have been pulled out in the past. You have, I think, Roger Patterson cast some stuff out there. I don't know. I'm not too brushed up on the history about anybody else that's cast in that area.
Bob Titmus has.
Bob Titmus. Okay, which makes sense. Bob Titmus cast a lot of those original tracks back in the day. The guy definitely knew his stuff when it came to tracking and casting.
It tripped me out because we were driving back from the quarry, and you're on this pitch black dirt road with trees all surrounding you, and Rowdy just stops his truck. And we're like, "What's going on?" He goes, "We're here. This is it." And there's no signage. There's absolutely nothing. You're just like, "This is it." Yeah, just walk there or there. It's there.
You have to know.
Okay.
Basically,
you just have to know.
Yeah, right.
To be fair, I guess not to be fair, but I guess I don't know what I'm saying. It's easy to find layered meadow, but it's hard at the same time. And also at the same time, you won't get lost. Because layered meadow is literally like within a few trees and you're right there.
Right, but for those of us that have never been there before, trying to find it at night, I wouldn't have been able to find it. I mean, there's other meadows too, so it's is this layered meadow? Is that layered meadow? It's one specific meadow, and it's not that big of a meadow. I mean,
oh no, that's bigger. Because I've hiked it before in the day, and then Ron and I went back in there and we hiked around there. Oh, but it's something strange I can tell you on this show after we talk about what happened. Because I'll tell you. Just continue on.
Okay. Whatever that means.
you'll find out. Just if you want to find out, listen.
All right. So anyway, we decided to kind of deploy some typical Squatch tactics that night. We headed out so this was all 5 of us were there.
And then we had it was me and Alex together, Eli and Jonathan, Ron, Terry, and Stevie, and then Ron's dog, Bandit. They were in a group. So the 4 of us, besides Ron, were in the meadow. Ron, Stevie, Terry, and Damon were on the road.
Yeah, so we what we did was we spread out in the meadow, and we had a team out on the roads, and then we had teams of 2 in the meadow. So we were kind of across from where Jonathan and Eli were, Tate and I, and we kind of did some knocks. We had some wooden knockers, and Jonathan, that thing you have is like really pretty great for knocking. Yeah, I mean, I'm still trying to kind of wrap my head around all the stuff that happened. But what was the first sequence of events that you guys remember?
I remember I asked Stevie if he could do a howl.
Ohio howl, that's right.
And then probably maybe 4 minutes after that, you and I, Alex, where we were standing, it didn't sound like something fell. It sounded like something was thrown at us in our direction, which we got on audio.
Well, let's. I think we should back it up because we were actively doing kind of our own thing, and we actually caused a little bit of confusion on you guys' part.
So yeah,
it's a while to kind of figure out what was us and what wasn't. Totally. And part of that was my judgment. I started making. They showed me the new wood knocking technique Jonathan showed us, and I was like, I wonder how far that could carry. I never tested it, and then also I think. Yeah, because I don't think I never had anything to knock with, so we never actually did any wood knocks. But I did a couple of these things where how is it? You hold your hand up like that, and then you
do that. There you go.
I can't even do it right now.
I don't know if that picks up on audio or it's too loud or whatever, but you just kind of do this with your hands. You do this weird thing with your mouth. Somebody told me that apes do that in the Congo when people walk in and they don't want to vocally communicate, that they'll just go, and it sounds exactly like a wood on wood knock, But it carries really, 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 really loud. Like I can get pretty good when you get.
And you guys heard that, and that was kind of unscripted. We didn't call it out on the radio.
No, but that's after the fact, because we got that we were all being silent, and then I was like, Stevie, do that call. Jonathan and I had that thing thrown at us.
But before that happened, Tate, we did do a knock. I mean, we did.
We did knocks. They did knocks. You guys did knocks. Me and Eli did knocks.
Yeah.
And there was nothing so far. And then here, note this. Ron's group couldn't hear our knocks.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Now my knocker.
We went up that hill and we couldn't hear you guys kind of down there in the meadow, and we were facing out. At that point, we walked around, and I think we were facing out like the other side of the ridge. The other ridge.
Now I have a low pitch jam block. It's about this big. It's purple, and you hit it, and it's a deep. It sounds like a wood knock. And I was hitting that thing, and it sounded really loud. I had no doubt that you guys can hear it. You guys didn't hear it. So
we heard it. We heard one. One carried very well. But we would every time you guys would call it, we'd listen, and we wouldn't really hear anything.
So my thing was, you want to compare my knocker to you doing that with your hands. It's not you with your hands is not going to be as loud. So I came to the conclusion there was no way we could have heard you.
Okay, but here's the thing. We were under the assumption that they were out towards the road. So basically, if this is the road, we had walked out this way and we're spread about in the meadow. we thought they were here. We didn't find out. We didn't find out until later that they actually walked up this hill. We didn't know so when we heard them at the end coming down, we see their lights coming down, complete opposite direction from where we heard stuff coming from. So to kind of keep the sequence of events without getting too confusing, after we did Knox, we sat for a little bit. I was leaned up against a tree sitting. Tate was kind of right out in the field in Laird Meadow, and we both had audio rolling, and it sounded like a tree or something fell somewhat behind us, and Tate immediately, we kind of turned to each other like, what was that? Not long after that, we heard a faint knocking sound.
Same direction.
Yeah, same direction from behind us, where there was no road, there was nobody from the road team or Jonathan and Eli where we could see them across. They were in a grove of trees right in the meadow. At that point, that was a little weird. We kept doing knocks, and then at one point we heard a couple of pretty good knocks coming from the direction of the road. And I remember, I think we were all frustrated because we said, I remember telling Tate, get on the radio, tell the road people to stop doing that unannounced. Like, it's really annoying. And Jonathan, I think you said it's too good to be true or something like that, the knocks that you heard.
It was too good to be true. I said to Eli in that moment, I said, dang, I go, I can even hear the bark on the tree split. I can hear the texture of the bark on the tree. It was so loud and clear. And it came from kind of the direction the cars were, but further in front. Yeah. And the thing is that Ron's group was the opposite direction and up, but we didn't know that.
Right.
So we were kind of like, is that them? No, it's too good to be them. It's way too good to be them.
No, I was thinking it was them because I didn't know where they were. So Ron, you guys you didn't hear any of that, right?
Right. So when you guys were saying, hey, stop knocking, or hey, have you heard any knocks or anything, we didn't know what you were talking about because we couldn't hear the knocks because I think they were too localized to you down in the meadow and from the other end. And I think where we were, this goes back to when I did the clap knock sound, we were right up at the top of the ridge. And so the sound would have carried down to you guys. But anything that you had was like stopped, like, because you were down there. Like, I don't know, for whatever reason, like the sound never reached to us because at that point we had wrapped around the corner. And so we could only hear maybe like, I think we heard one or maybe two of your knocks the whole time.
Right.
Because that thing works really well. But when you were talking about all the stuff falling and everything, it was like silent. We were just sitting there like observing, and we were trying to stir some stuff up on our end. Like by doing other things, we were throwing rocks down the slope to see if we could stir anything up because we did hear some movement, but you guys never reported hearing any of that. And everything was quiet over the air when we were doing it. I mean, I threw one really big boulder and it crashed all the way down, but it was like going out the other way and you guys didn't hear it, and it didn't line up to when you heard the crashing and the falling from the other side of where you were. So it was just kind of like we tried to piece it together, and we had a lot of moving parts on both parties, but one thing that we never had was anything to knock with. And I never did anything after that one clap call. And you guys heard multiple knocks, and so something didn't add up.
And just to add to that real quick, Tate, I was very frustrated at the time because I thought it was a complete breakdown of communication. We all had walkies. Each team had walkies, and I kept saying, can you guys announce before you do knocks? And I remember getting frustrated with Tate, and I'm like, can we tell them to stop doing knocks? And then they would say, well, it wasn't us. So I was like, okay, well, that's weird. I think we lost Eli, but
Eli. No, I was just gonna have him talk about it because we heard that crash you're talking about through the trees was crazy. Mm-hmm. I mean, we heard it. It was gnarly. It was like, we were thinking, I couldn't tell what direction it came from. I just knew it was kind of in front of us. You guys were to my right. So that crash was huge. I mean, it sounded like crash, bang, 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 bang. And I was like, that was crazy. That
might have been the rock, because we were surprised with how far it went, because it never lost momentum, and it got all the way down to the bottom of the mountain.
This crash came from behind.
Yeah, this was from
Alex.
Yeah, this was like it sounded to me, it sounded like a tree or a branch came down There was no wind at all that night, and that's the
You
same
guys would have
direction.
been kind of behind me to my left where I was. That's where going up that road would take you. This came from completely to my like my right-ish area. Like I said, I didn't really know at the time, but
and that was
once
that
you guys
first
said
sound
it,
that we
said,
heard.
"Oh, that's right."
That was the first thing we heard
It
all
was
night.
after Stevie's howl. Stevie, that is the one thing we heard from you guys. That howl. Stevie did that howl, and it came in pretty clear. But we could tell you guys were pretty far away. But that came in really clear, and it wasn't too long after that. And here's what tripped me out. Maybe we can get off now that Eli's back. We can get this down. Eli said we heard a series of knocks, and I do remember a series of knocks. But that was kind of the time where we were experiencing a little bit of confusion. Well, it was confusion on our behalf because you guys said you didn't do much. But so we heard this little series of knocks. Eli, do you remember that?
Yes, it was like 4 or 5 pretty loud knocks from where we were, but it sounded like it was coming from the direction of the car.
Or further down the road.
Or further down the road. It was in the general direction of the car, but come to find out that Ron and Steve and Terry weren't at the car at the time we heard those knocks.
Yeah, we were at least a 15-minute walk up the road.
15?
Yeah, I mean
even right now I'm like, whoa, I thought you guys were at this point right before you said 15. I thought you guys were like 5 minutes up the road.
Yeah,
I mean between 10 and 15, but definitely more than 10, I think, because it took a while to get up that way.
Went up there, and
that's what it seemed like anyway.
To reiterate, when I first saw that direction from where you guys were coming up down the road, when I first saw your lights, I thought, "What is that?" And then I see the flashlights start bobbing, and I remember telling Tate, I'm like, "Wow, dude, I did not know they were there. I thought they were to the right of us." That's where the sounds came from. Now, what was interesting about where we were in that part of the meadow, there's the road, but on the other side, there's another meadow, or I don't know if it's part of Laird Meadow. It's kind of the same general area. So I still haven't reviewed the audio, but that was definitely really strange. I mean, whatever was behind Tate and I that crashed the branch and then let out a knock shortly after that was separate from something that was knocking or making noises that resembled knocks from to the right of where Tate and I were. So we would have been facing Jonathan and Eli, and then Ron would have been to their left, far up the road, basically.
I want to let
15 minutes up the road.
That there was not a single bit of wind that night. It was dead silent.
Very, very, very quiet.
So whatever was thrown at Alex and I, or whatever, I feel like it was thrown because it didn't sound like it fell, in my opinion.
I can't say one way or another. It's just, it was something crashed, and I remember it being not directly behind us, but it was, maybe 50, 60 feet in there. And there was just woods back there.
What if it was those same creatures that did the rock slide? Because where we were was not too far from that.
I mean, I don't know. I just can't say one way or another. It's just one of those ambiguous events. But after that, so we reconvene then with everybody at the road. We walk out, and Ron and basically that first car of people, we were 2 cars. So the 4 of you guys left, and we decided to pretend that, everyone had left. We sat in the road there with complete silence as that other car left, and just sat there for about another 45 minutes. I think that's what I have on for my timestamp for the audio that we recorded then. And that was weird. We sat there, and I did some whistles, and every time we did a whistle, it's as if something shifted to the right and then shifted to the left a little bit.
That was so frustrating, dude. That was so frustrating. I can't express how frustrating that was. I tell people the story, and it was like, I want you to imagine 15 solid minutes of silence, so quiet that if you whisper as quietly as possible, the next person can hear you from like 5 feet away clearly. Yeah. Like it was just so quiet. And then 15 solid minutes of silence, and then you went, and you hear crick, crack, crack. Okay, another 15 minutes of silence, and then you went, and something over here goes crunch, crunch. It's like, really? Like every time we did something, it was like there was this movement off in the woods over and over, and we're like, is this real? Like, is this really happening?
I mean, something was there. I'm willing to say that it possibly could have been a deer or a bear that, you know, it was just waiting for us. And once it made a noise, it moved around. That's possible. I can't say what it was or wasn't, obviously, because we have nothing.
That would
else to
require
offer,
a great amount of patience, though.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
I mean, we were getting impatient. You know, we'd have to readjust the way we sit.
I started shouting into the woods at one point. And I know Eli got creeped
Dude,
out.
I was like, this thing's gonna start talking back to us, and I don't want to be here for that. And
Eli,
it's just like, because dude, there was definitely
4 berries.
Oh my goodness, dude.
4 berries.
What a crap myself.
Jeremiah says that's the freakiest story so far.
Yeah,
I mean, it was weird. The rock slide for me was probably the weirdest, but that was just strange. I mean, and just the fact again that Ron and that crew did not hear half of what we heard, basically, or none of what we heard, was so weird about it.
So,
in my opinion,
you guys want to know what I think maybe something occurred here?
Sure, go for it.
So like I said, like the big highlight of our time, because it was quiet where we were, we didn't observe a lot of activity. The only thing that we really got to observe on our side of the meadow was going up that road and then looking down away from the meadow and hearing a little bit of movement. And so I was kind of bored because you guys kept putting us on standby, and I'm like, I kind of want to like engage, but without, obviously this was after the first knock, and it was like, oh, I don't want to like confuse anything. So it was like, what if we, instead of making vocals and knocks, like what if I just started tossing stuff down the mountain? That seemed to get those guys some good results earlier in the week, you know, thinking about your rock slide and stuff. So and then that was also, I think at that point, that was after Bandit had his weird stuff, and there
was the same night. Yeah,
Tate was throwing rocks down that mountain when you guys heard the knocks and Bandit had his mental breakdown. So I was like, okay, well, let's try to make it 3 for 3. I'm going to start throwing rocks. And there was one big one, and I don't think you guys heard it because you never said anything on the radio or anything like that. But I mean, it was this big. It was at least a 70-pound rock. And I had to like swing it like this to get it going, but it didn't stop. And it like hit a tree pretty hard. I don't know if that was one of those knocks that can account for one of those knocks when it made that first impact. But after that thing finally came to a rest, it was quiet for a few minutes. And then you guys started talking about the knocks, and you started getting frustrated about all the knocks. And you're like, we keep hearing them. And it had been quiet for like a few minutes. So I knew it wasn't us throwing the rocks or anything like that. And I'm wondering if I had stirred something up down there, because then whatever might have been there could have made its way into what we later discovered was the second meadow on the other side of the road.
Right.
And so if maybe something was like hanging out over there, we might have flushed it out with Stevie's territorial Bigfoot call and a huge display of strength of throwing a boulder all the way down a mountain, which wasn't like any feat of strength from me. I was just fortunate that it built up so much momentum that it kept going.
Yeah, right.
So it made me look like I was like, between me and Stevie, that thing must have thought we were like an alpha squatch up on top of the hill. And so it might have just been like, I'm out, I'm going out. And then all of a sudden it realizes there's people here.
Eli, do you remember this? We heard one knock come from like way in front of the cars. And that's the one that I said was like, dang, I could hear the bark on that one.
Yeah.
And then there was one that was nearly identical, kind of up the road the way that Ron's group went. One solid one. It's a little mixed up because we heard, you know. So
we got to review audio.
Yeah, we got to go over it.
None of us even had sticks to do knocks. We didn't have anything like you had. We didn't have sticks. We didn't have.
Yeah, right. So we had the knockers, and I guess their group just didn't.
Yeah.
But Eli, let me ask you.
So did Patty. Patty had the knockers.
So all of us, I think, have heard knocks for the most part, right? Aside from Eli, I mean, possibly in the past. But what was your initial impression of just the whole kind of ordeal? What did you think of it?
Well, I have to say, I thought it was them at first too. You know, so it was like I heard all these noises, but I thought it was Ron and them making the noises. So like it was like a delayed thing. Like wait, so what did I hear? You know, kind of, yeah, you know. So I don't know. For me, it's still confusing. Later in Oregon, I definitely heard knocks that were definitively not human, but you know,
For the next episode next week.
that is for the
Yeah.
next episode. But honestly, it's a little scary. I don't know. Like, there's something out there. Like, I don't know. A bear doesn't make a knock. A mountain lion doesn't make a knock. You know.
I look back and I'm like, something was out there.
Yeah, something
Like,
was.
it
Like
was there. And
that became apparent when we were on the road and Alex was whistling and trying to talk to the Sasquatch. You know. So.
But you know, it's strange too. It's like after the Laird Meadow thing, you guys were there for another day, and then you guys ended up leaving.
Yeah, we didn't have time to really go do a follow-up investigation, which would have been great.
So when, this is a two-parter to kind of go along with all the rock slide, the knocks at Laird Meadow that we heard and everything. When when Eli, when Eli, damn it,
the beers are kicking
Get
in.
it together, Tate.
The beers are kicking in.
Shut it. When Ron, Stevie, and I went back up there, we hiked around Laird Meadow, and Ron and I hiked further back into the trees, kind of where we were standing. We hiked back in there, and we found rocks about this big. Just boulders everywhere. So something could have thrown something at us there and made some knocks. And if you walk further back, there's like another little meadow within that first meadow that we were in. It's Inception. Whatever.
No, you're right. I'm glad that you guys were able to actually go up there and kind of look around. I wish we had time to do a follow-up. Had we had the time, we would have posted up in the same spots, had somebody go and do knocks in certain areas, see what we could hear. But yeah, that was
camping in there.
Oh, it would have been great. And again, Laird Meadow is a historical place for Bigfoot, I guess. Tracks have been cast there. And as we found in other meadows throughout the Pacific Northwest, if you get the right conditions, it's perfect for tracks, whether they be elk or other animals. So no surprise that prints have been found in these areas in the past. But yeah, that was definitely probably the most prominent stuff where you're kind of left afterwards just scratching your head saying, you know, what did we experience? Something was there. I don't know what, but that part as well kind of freaky at the end where we're doing the whistling and shouting into the woods and something is, you know, on both sides of the road is just kind of moving around slightly as if it's like adjusting. And, you know, something's in there. What it is, I don't know. But, you know, we don't want to let our imaginations run wild, but possibly a Sasquatch. I'm not sure. But Ron looks like he had a comment.
Yeah, when we went up there and we did our investigation, we did find a little open, dry mud pit where a few animals had been stepping. So we did find some evidence of did we find some deer or elk prints in there?
Yeah, there was a few in there.
But then we also found a bear track, pretty good bear track registered in there. So we know that there's some animals in that area.
Sure, and it's a remote area. I mean, that's the kind of thing you expect. There are plenty of wildlife in these sorts of areas, food sources for multiple big predators and lots of ungulates. So,
well, and the thing too is like you guys left shortly after that. I think the next day, we went the next night. Jonathan, Ron, and then Terry, Stevie, and I went up, and Damon went up to Onion Lake. Nothing happened, and then I think was it that same night or the second to the last, or that was the last second to the last night we were there. We were at the cell site, and Jonathan had left by then. Ron, Stevie, and Damon and Bandit walked up the road from the cell site, headed as if you're going to head out towards the main highway. And then Terry and I were where the RVs were. I was playing bass, and then Ron was playing his didgeridoo with his flute. I couldn't really hear them, but after I stopped playing bass, Terry and I were sitting at the RV just listening. I had my phone recording audio, and then probably within a couple minutes later, we definitely heard a knock after that. And so Damon has this theory that they carry rocks with them at all times for hunting. especially like when sometimes the wood is unreliable out there for like throwing or spearing.
Sure.
I kind of have a similar thing that they probably carry rocks to do wood knocks out there, because if you guys saw out there some of the wood, like if you pick it up and try to do knocks, it's going to break apart if you do something.
Got to find a good knocker.
There's a ton of rocks out there, so if you picked up a rock and you threw it at a tree, it can make a good knock. Yeah. And something we can talk about on the Oregon episode is I replicated a knock sound with a rock, and it sounded just like an authentic knock, like something you would probably hear in the forest.
Right. Yeah, man. I mean, as so often happens with these types of trips and expeditions, you're left with a lot more questions than answers. Some things that we think may have happened might just be mundane explanations. Other things, you could be watched by something and have no idea. I think that happens a fair amount with this topic as well. But yeah, I think it was an incredible time up in that area, and I think we'll each kind of give a kind of closing thought about I guess that Bluff Creek, and especially for those of us that it was our first time out there, or just everything. I mean, for me personally, it was again just putting in a piece of that Bigfoot map in my mind and seeing how rugged it is out there, even decades and decades after the logging and the first tracks were found in that area and the name Bigfoot kind of emerged. It's still rugged. You could still fall off the mountain there and be gone. I mean, who knows if you'll be found anytime soon. It's very rugged wilderness. If you're not prepared out there, you can face the consequences. So if there's a place where these things are going to be, even 50 something years after the Patterson-Gimlin film or the tracks that were found by the crew and all those guys, that's the place they'd be. I mean, it's a perfect habitat all around. So as far as I'm concerned, I think it was an interesting trip. I don't know what exactly we all experienced. Something weird. And I can't wait to kind of show what that'll look like in an episode. So yeah, that's my kind of final thoughts. Let's just go around. Everyone kind of give a quick closing or a closing statement.
I'll go next before I forget what I wanted to say. When I go back one day, I really want to explore that Notice Creek area where the rocks were thrown. Same place I saw a bear, same place Bandit, Ron's dog, had that little incident. I just think that might be some kind of byway. Historically, Jerry Crew found prints there. And I think that's where I saw a bear on my way out. So, or maybe animals are moving through that area as well. Maybe for some reason it's some reason it's some easy pathway. I'd like to explore that next time too. It was so cool. Finally, after so many years of hearing from and also meeting a bunch of I don't want to say old guys, but older researchers. This field was full of older researchers,
Yeah.
And it was like, where are all the young dudes, man? And then you meet the young dudes and they're a little crazy, they're not all there. And finally, I met some dudes that are badass outdoorsmen, level-headed, very, very passionate about this subject, willing to do things like stay out in Layered Meadow at 3 a.m, another place at, till the sun came up. Super fun. And yeah, and it's like finally, I'm glad to have met you guys, and I know that this isn't going to be the last time we ever hang out. They need to make a TV show of us, because the B-roll footage audio that I have is incredible.
I know. I could make an X-rated version of the film, basically.
X-rated. I'd say
outdated.
R, but did something happen that I didn't?
Yeah, right.
I think the level of conversation was X worthy. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of it. Yeah, okay.
What happened in Alex and Eli's tent that we don't know about?
Oh, Lord. Stop.
I don't know.
Stop.
Ken, you're the one hiding in your tent all day, so I don't know what you were doing in there while your head was just sticking out the tent.
The jokes about how we're all young researchers and we're all kind of like regular dudes right now, but at what point do we become these weird older egotistical researchers in our 50s that can't even have logical conversations and have to correct Ron Reed when he tries to ask him questions?
Yeah, dude. When do I get to do Eli Watson blows a gasket?
Oh yeah.
But anyway,
Eli Watson blows the guy. I know the video you're talking about.
It's good. Once you know the jokes, it's great. But
Yeah.
You kind of are his ethnicity in a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, we're not gonna
Okay.
go down this rabbit hole anymore. But Ron, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think what I took away from this trip is there's definitely something going around that Laos camp, and there's something that not only brings Bigfoot researchers out there. We know what that is. That's the history, the Jerry Crew, the nearby Patterson-Gimlin film site, and meeting up with everybody that goes there. But there's something that brings, I think, them out there, and I think a lot about how when we were at camp, we could hear when somebody was pulling up. You could hear them like taking those gravel roads like up the ridge, like, so you can hear everyone before they get there, 10 minutes before they get there. And then if you're up high to where you could see everything, like, that's, to me, it's like a human safari, like for the Bigfoot. You know, they can just like go out there and observe us and have interactions, but in a way that's where they're sheltered and the safe, because the topography and what they know about that area is going to give them a distinct advantage, and they only have the encounters that they want to have. The last day that we were at Laos camp before we moved up to the cell site for our final night of research in California, I heard about 30-40 minutes apart a couple of knocks. You guys had already left. You and Eli had already left, but Jonathan was down by the creek. He didn't hear anything, I don't think, but it was just one of those things. I was just laying in bed. I was half asleep. I was still in that big canvas tent that I had set up, and I heard one knock, and I was like, that probably won't happen again. And I went back to sleep, and then a half hour later, I heard something else, and I'm like, you know, there's something out there. And I was just the whole trip, I was technically impaired. Like, I could not get like my recorders or cameras or drones working for me. I just came out without field testing a lot of my new stuff, and didn't really have the means to get it. Things started to change in Oregon because I started to adapt and use what I had in the best way that I had. But we'll talk about that next week, hopefully.
For sure. Yeah, there was some tech issues there too. It was very frustrating, as we'll talk about. But
there's a lot happening. We all experience like what it's like to be out there, and there's a consistency in that area. And yeah, I mean, I'm surprised. And I'm really, like, as a Bigfoot researcher that's been doing this for over a decade now, without having a sighting, it's easy to get discouraged. But when you get to an area like that, and you have some strange things consistently happen, and you start to wonder, okay, maybe it's not just chance, or I broke away from this person and distinctly made a decision to work with this person instead in our group, and we experience something that's weird. You know, I know it's not just somebody like imagining things at that point. Like, there's stuff going on out there, and it's reassuring to somebody that has been in here doing this for a while and hasn't had that 100% confirmation and that Bigfoot's real. You know, it keeps you, it gives you hope, you know, when you go to a place like Bluff Creek, when you go to a place like Laos Camp. And yeah, I mean, I'm ready for the next round.
For sure. And I think, you know, something that I heard that Ken Gearhart said while we were walking around was, he's talking about how you're in the area that's produced so much historical Bigfoot evidence. And, you know, without letting confirmation bias get to your mind, is there a better place to have, or a more likely place to have a Bigfoot encounter than the area that's been so famous for it? You know, perhaps. But either way, we had some weird stuff happen. So I don't know if Eli or Tate wants to give their kind of closing thoughts too.
Sure, Tate can go. I want to hear from the new mustache.
My closing statement is I think Eli should go.
Okay, fine. All right. I don't know.
Closing statement.
Northern California is a interesting place. There's a lot of
I think you froze.
hello, am I back?
I think you froze. So you're a Southern Californian, right? You'd never been in Northern California before too, which I think is interesting.
Yes, hello, am I here?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. Hello, I'm so sorry. My phone just keeps nuking itself this entire time. So, no, yeah, Northern California. What struck me most about it was how arid it was. I was expecting something a lot more like Washington or Oregon, where it was a lot more wet. Which I guess I shouldn't say Oregon is more wet because it's on fire. But I'm glad someone found it funny.
Sorry.
But it's an interesting place because you have all these mountains, and even when I was driving back from Oregon and coming home, and just like there's just no way to just avoid those mountains. Tate, it's not that funny, bro. So it's so dense and so remote in a lot of those places, and there's just you feel. He went away. He went away.
He's laughing right now. You know.
That's why he went away.
Anyways, I just want to say it's just a very interesting location. There's not a whole lot of places like it in the world. I know maybe Alex has said this already, but there's truly like a lot of biomes in that one small area. You have the redwoods, and you have the coastline with all the rocks, and then you have the really hot forest right there where Louse Camp and Bluff Creek are, and it's just this interesting mixture of terrain and topography, and he's back. So, Tate, I think it's your turn to go.
Got me off guard.
Drink another one, dude.
Yeah. Closing statement.
Oh
boy.
I think if you've never been squatching and you really want to get your feet wet, go to Bluff Creek. It's a good jumping off point in my opinion, because it's somewhat easy to get to, and it's a good place to kind of experience what it would be like to get to these other places. But that's just like, it's a good starting off point in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, it's still remote enough. You know, it's a challenge to get in there, but it's also becoming more accessible, I'd say, over time. And I just got to give a shout out to the Bluff Creek Project in general, because they're the ones that maintain the site. Basically, they have mapped it out, and they point people in that direction and are kind of the keepers of that site. So they've done a fantastic job, and just super interesting hearing and meeting up with those guys and hearing the stories and meeting all you guys there and just having such an awesome time out there. It was pretty freaking cool, and I'm working on the video now, and it's just so awesome to relive it and to kind of try and make it all make sense, because you know we're out in all these different places at night, so trying to kind of condense it all into something a little bit more digestible for audiences. So that's what's so cool about this, is we're able to hash it out and talk about everything that happens. So really cool to have you guys all on. So yeah. In closing, just want to a couple people in the comments. Kim says, thanks for sharing your adventure, Alex and crew.
Cool.
Bravo, Big Bluff Creek Project. And Mothman says, Alex, you rock, dude. I can't wait to get a meet and greet with you. Yeah, I'm sure at some point with the events coming back, that'll be fun. I guess Eli's phone nuked itself again, so we'll that's all good. But yeah, so originally this was going to be a both California and Oregon episode, but I'm glad we kind of kept it California, because I think there was just so much to talk about. You're talking about one of the most famous places in all of Bigfooting. So we'll save the Oregon thing for next week. And
the Richard Peterson and Bill Gimlin
site.
Gimlin as the Forest Service worker alluded to us.
we've debunked it all. It's all fake. We know that Bigfoot is not real based off of this trip. We've completely eradicated it. So don't worry, guys.
And it
Just kidding.
wasn't Bob Hieronymus, it was Tate Hieronymus in the
Tate
costume.
Hieronymus, yeah, in the costume, of
Yeah,
course.
Tate Hieronymus.
It actually wasn't a costume. It was a hologram, advanced technology from the UFOs in the area.
Oh,
We were going
boy.
to dress him up as a giant salamander so he can take in the legacy of his uncle, Bob
boy.
Hieronymus.
Oh Lord.
I do got to read this comment from Jeremiah. PDG forever. We'll leave it at that.
That's it.
That's
No,
it. No,
more
we're
shut
not.
up. Let's
No,
end
no
this.
explaining. But okay, guys. So thank you to everyone in the comments. Seriously, awesome to see everyone. Jeremiah sticking it through. Mothman 46, Greg. Just a lot of awesome people. Thank you guys all for your comments and support as always. It's fun to be back on the show. Obviously, it's been a while since the last one. Again, shout out to Carrick St. Laurent of Crash Course Cryptozoology. He did some killer shows while we were away. Definitely go check those out. He's got some really cool projects coming up. He did some Q&A stuff with that. So that was pretty awesome of him to do. We'll hope to have him on another one of these kind of panel things too as well in the future. But as we were talking about during the show, next week we'll be doing an Oregon recap. So talk about the second part of the adventure, because when you're spending a week in each location, it's tough to split between the two. So I think we'll kind of give it its own show, which I think works. So
Spoiler alert, most of us on here tonight are going to be on there next week.
yeah, well, Jonathan can come along if he wants for fun. I mean, if he wants to hear the stories. But we'll also have Sam on, who wasn't on for the California crew. He was on for Oregon. So, and he's not really into Bigfoot, so it'll be interesting to hear his perspective. That was really cool. Kind of, he was hanging out with all these Bigfooters, and he's never really been doing that kind of stuff. So that's always interesting perspective when you throw somebody right into the frying pan like that. So yeah, guys, next week Oregon episode. Thanks again to everybody that's tuned in. Beyond the Trail, Small Town Monsters. Check that out. Previous episodes. This California episode will be coming out in, I want to say, mid or late August. I'm working on it now. It'll be done soon, but the release date will come on YouTube at a later date. So thanks again to everybody who tuned in. This was another episode of Sasquatch Out of the Shadows Live, and we will see you all next week for next week's Expedition Oregon recap. So have a good night, everybody. And I will link the places to find all these guys down there in the comments. And Jonathan has the coolest shirt out there. Look at this shirt. He wore that down at the film site. Pretty cool. So on that note, guys, all right, everyone have a good night.
Night.
Peace.
See ya. Peace.